Inside a cramped room, the team made final preparations. The blonde girl packed her gear, the beastkin readied to move anywhere, and their brown-haired ally gave the nod. Toru Suzuki announced that it was time to head into the dungeon. Months earlier, Toru Suzuki discussed renting a massive townhouse for just 3,000 yen a month, wondering if ghosts haunted the place. The bespectacled realtor laughed off ghost rumors, mentioning goblins instead before sliding a contract across the desk for a seal. A bizarre clause raised red flags, but as a broke high school dropout, Toru Suzuki could not pass up the bargain. Signing the lease secured him the grand estate, along with an unlisted gateway straight into an underground labyrinth. Handing over the keys at noon, the shady broker acted jittery before rushing away without another word. Movers delivered his cargo shortly after, leaving Toru Suzuki alone to unpack boxes across the empty halls. Stepping past the front entryway at nightfall, Toru Suzuki discovered an endless void of dark stone corridors where monsters roam. Cold dread washed over him, questioning whether this bizarre cavern was real and if he could ever find his way back. Desperate for logic, he tried convincing himself that this grim stone chamber was merely an unfinished basement wing. Slamming the heavy threshold shut, Toru Suzuki retreated to the kitchen table to process the madness. Confusion mounted over what move to make next and whether he remained anchored to ordinary reality. Streetlight drifting across the room caught Toru Suzuki off guard, drawing him toward the window. Pure astonishment froze him on the spot. Outside stretched ordinary asphalt, bathed under the familiar glow of Tachikawa, Tokyo. Inspecting the layout, Toru Suzuki realized only the front entrance led into the abyss, whereas every window faced modern Tokyo. Climbing through windows was a cheap trade-off for a dirt-cheap mansion, turning the strange lease into a dream come true. Determined to explore further, Toru Suzuki headed out to purchase supplies. Returning with shopping bags, he unboxed budget spelunking gear, complete with ropes and a headlamp-mounted helmet. Fastening the straps, he tested the fit for agility. Ready for action? Toru Suzuki geared up and declared his intention to enter the dungeon. Leaning against the mysterious door, Toru Suzuki listened closely, reassured by the dead silence on the other side, illuminating the gloom far past a phone light. The beam revealed a colossal stone chamber. Shadows cast by towering pillars set Toru Suzuki on edge until motion caught his eye. Peering around the stone pillar, Toru Suzuki braced to sprint back if more than one goblin approached. Lowering his stance, he crept deeper into the cavern. Rounding another column, Toru Suzuki spotted something shifting in the darkness ahead. Ducking back behind cover, he realized the figure slumped nearby was thoroughly exhausted. Glancing past the stone edge, Toru Suzuki saw the delicate outline of a girl rather than a monster. Clad in the battered armor of a knight, the collapsed girl wept in silence, unable to rise. Danger signaled a possible trap, yet her quiet sobs felt genuine. Walking away was impossible for Toru Suzuki, knowing even an ordinary Japanese guy had to take action. Childhood memories of his grandmother, urging him to help those in need, pushed him forward. A quick scan confirmed the hall was clear, save for a heavy iron door behind her. Suspicion lingered that Ria might be bait for an ambush waiting behind the gate. Seeking answers, Toru Suzuki tossed a small pebble toward her to gauge a reaction. The stone hit her armor, causing Ria to wince in pain and plead for him to stop. Understanding her plea despite the strange accent, Toru Suzuki asked if she was hurt, as Ria warned him away. Pushing past her terrified cries, Toru Suzuki stepped closer, noting that she was in no condition to run. Ria protested weakly, claiming she could still move. Seeing through her bluff, Toru Suzuki insisted on helping her. Shrinking against the stone wall, Ria begged for mercy and pleaded not to be killed. Desperate to survive, Ria offered to clean and scrub floors if Mr. Goblin spared her life. Hearing the goblin mistake, Toru Suzuki realized the blinding beam of his headlamp obscured his human face. Unclipping the helmet, he aimed the light up at his chin to show his face, unintentionally casting a monstrous grimace that made Ria shriek. Terrified by the sight, Ria clamped her eyes shut. Shock overwhelmed her senses, plunging Ria into unconsciousness. Regret hit Toru Suzuki instantly for scaring her into a dead faint. Checking her breathing, relief washed over Toru Suzuki that she remained alive. A strange detail catches Toru Suzuki by surprise. Fear made the poor girl wet herself, and abandoning her here would weigh heavily on his conscience. Hoisting her onto his back, he announces that they have to move. Her dead weight strains his shoulders, and the soaked fabric clinging to her thighs makes for a wretched carry. Glancing at her massive shield, he knows he cannot haul both, forcing him to leave the metal behind. Reaching his apartment is the only way she will ever get proper rest and recover. Back inside, he realizes his bed is still in pieces, leaving the tatami floor as her only resting spot. Sitting down beside her, Toru Suzuki hesitates, knowing that stripping off her soaked armor and clothes would cross every line of decency. Up close, her features are breathtakingly delicate and graceful, sculpted like porcelain. A heavy yawn breaks through as the safety of the shelter sinks in, exhaustion from the day finally catching up. Still, leaving her unattended to go to sleep is something he simply refuses to do. A gentle voice drifts through his slumber, calling out for a great sage, until Toru Suzuki blinks his eyes open. Asked if he is awake, Toru Suzuki surveys his tatami tatami room and wonders if entering a dungeon to save a girl was just a vivid dream. His hand gently strokes the pillow beneath his head, amazed by how remarkably soft and warm it feels. Reality hits in a panic as Toru Suzuki jolts up, realizing his cozy pillow is actually the girl herself. Toru Suzuki stammers an apology for nodding off, yet she simply beams, explaining he rested too peacefully to disturb. The entire room radiates immense comfort, letting even a great master rest in absolute peace. Pleased to be called a master rather than a goblin, Toru Suzuki hears her apologize for mistaking him earlier due to his strange monster tongue. Baffled by the mention of monster speech, he questions her further, only for the girl to ask what language he is using right now. Dawning realization strikes Toru Suzuki that Japanese is the native tongue of dungeon monsters, though he insists he hardly resembles a wise sage. Skeptical of his denial, the girl points out that anyone living deep within a deadly dungeon among bizarre relics must be a reclusive hermit sage. Praising the plush sofa and exquisite dolls she mistakes for arcane tools, she presses Toru Suzuki again about his legendary status. Rolling with the lie, he claims the figures are sacred arcane tools, though she admits fearing dark magic when noticing half the figurines are completely unclothed. Reassuring her with a calm smile, Toru Suzuki checks her condition, glad to hear the paralyzing venom is fading after his rescue spared her a grim fate. Dropping to her knees, Ria calls him her savior and insists on granting any wish he desires, catching Toru Suzuki completely off guard. Despite her disheveled state, she insists a true knight always repays a debt of life with proper honor. An offer to choose anything sends Toru Suzuki into a tailspin as he wonders if she spoke completely without a filter. Though wild fantasies cross his mind, his grandmother would never forgive him for taking advantage of her. Toru Suzuki politely asks her to forget the favor, but Ria firmly refuses, vowing to honor the debt for the rest of her days. Pointing out that they never even introduced themselves, he watches her blush and stammer an apology for forgetting basic manners. With a proud smile, she introduces herself as Arya Eldoricus, asking him to simply call her Ria. Her noble family name twists his tongue, prompting Ria to cheerfully repeat that the shorter name fits just fine. Even with her permission, calling such a striking woman by her first name leaves Toru Suzuki totally intimidated. Asked for the great sage's identity, Toru Suzuki hesitates before nervously introducing himself as Toru Suzuki. The simple name delights Ria, leaving Toru Suzuki to silently curse his own awkward shyness. His ordinary apartment appliances leave Ria in awe, assuming only a legendary young sage could possess such artifacts. To a dungeon native lacking modern science, every household appliance and piece of furniture in his room registers as an enchanted relic. Dodging the question of his youth and mastery, Toru Suzuki argues that sages do not have to be white-bearded elders. When Ria inquires about the palace, Toru Suzuki weaves a blatant lie about becoming a royal court magician at age 6. Claiming he abandoned palace life for personal hobbies, he mentions he is 21, leaving Ria amazed that they are only 3 years apart. Her mature elegance makes her pass for 24, so Toru Suzuki double-checks if she is truly only 18 years old. Relieved that he rescued someone so young, Toru Suzuki shifts the subject to ask if monster venom caused her paralysis. Enduring monster attacks is routine for Ria, but remaining conscious in total darkness without the ability to move was pure agony. Shuddering at the memory, Ria confesses that the sheer helplessness terrified her to the bone. Toru Suzuki understands her trauma, knowing her accident occurred only because the venom trapped her helpless and terrified. Seeking to ease her distress, he offers a steaming hot bath, leaving Ria baffled that such a luxury exists inside a dungeon. The thought of a beautiful girl inaugurating his new tub makes Toru Suzuki silently thank the dungeon for its blessings. Returning to inform her the water is ready, he stops dead in his tracks upon spotting Ria kneeling on the floor. A panicked shout escapes Toru Suzuki as he frantically asks why she dropped into such a submissive dojeza posture. Mortified by the accident, Ria bows and apologizes after Toru Suzuki offers his bathroom. Toru Suzuki reassures her that hours trapped in the dungeon left her no choice, holding zero blame against her. Wide-eyed with disbelief, Ria inspects the damp fabric of his clothes. Panic strikes as Ria realizes she soaked his back during the carry, utterly mortified before the great sage. When Toru Suzuki calls it an accident, Ria protests that nobody ever soaks a legendary sage. Tears spill from Ria as she sobs that her chances of ever becoming a bride are ruined. Pausing for a moment, Toru Suzuki offers to take her hand in marriage instead, catching Ria completely off guard. Ria demands to know if the great sage spoke the truth, forcing Toru Suzuki to apologize for his careless tongue. A chilling smile creeps across Ria as she questions his joke, terrifying Toru Suzuki more than his first dungeon run. Steering the conversation toward the bath, Ria asks for directions, and Toru Suzuki extends a hand to guide her. At the entryway, Toru Suzuki explains that shoes come off first, prompting Ria to apologize for her ignorance. Removing her heavy armor would make the boots easier to slip off, a practical suggestion Ria readily accepts. Turning around, Ria admits her hands remain numb and powerless. Ria asks asks him to undo the tight straps along her back, and Toru Suzuki promptly agrees. Though Toru Suzuki tells himself he is only unbuckling armor, his heart pounds against his chest. With the metal plates removed, they step inside the modern bathroom. Astonished by an actual bath inside a dungeon, Ria questions the space until Toru Suzuki clarifies this is his apartment. Toru Suzuki points to the tub, which Ria recognizes as a rare luxury found only in noble estates and royal palaces. Curious about her world, Toru Suzuki asks if she knows of showers, but Ria apologizes for never encountering one. An explanation that the shower is an artifact crafted by the great sage immediately puts Ria at ease. Demonstrating this simple valve, Toru Suzuki shows how turning the handle regulates the flow of hot water. Her subdued reaction leaves Toru Suzuki wondering if modern plumbing feels familiar to her. The light washes over Ria as steaming water touches her skin, baffled by how heat exists without fire. Toru Suzuki jokes about water and fire magic, yet Ria eyes the device as a suspicious contraption. Still, Ria finds it magnificent, marveling that sage artifacts can create pure comfort instead of weapons for war. Ria cannot hide her excitement for the bath, her honest, childlike innocence shining through every gesture. Holding up a bottle, Toru Suzuki asks if she recognizes the unfamiliar smooth liquid inside. One press dispenses fragrant soap that softens skin and hair, leaving Ria wide-eyed in wonder. A rich floral lather coats her hands, delighting Ria as the sweet scent fills the room. Leaving Ria to wash up, Toru Suzuki heads to the living room to find her clean clothes. Digging through storage boxes, Toru Suzuki picks out an oversized shirt and sweatpants before worrying about underwear. Handing her just a loose top might send the wrong message entirely. Determined not to disgrace his grandmother, Toru Suzuki approaches the bathroom door and asks permission to leave the clothes inside. Soft humming echoes from behind the steam, proof that Ria is thoroughly enjoying the hot water. Outside the entrance, Toru Suzuki pauses, setting the bundle on the shelf. He hears Ria offer a heartfelt thank you through the mist. Backing away quickly, Toru Suzuki knows lingering any longer will turn him into an inferno. A piercing shriek shatters the quiet house. Toru Suzuki calls out in alarm, met only by Ria's panicked cries. Confusion grips him. How could monsters breach a peaceful modern home? Throwing caution aside, Toru Suzuki bursts straight into the room. A blast of wild spray hits him square in the face as the shower head thrashes out of control. Ria had twisted the dial to scalding heat and dropped the hose in panic, prompting Toru Suzuki to shut off the valve. Calming her down, Toru Suzuki explains how to adjust the handle gently toward the center for a balanced warmth. His gaze falls upon Ria, trembling and soaked before him. Flustered by the intrusion, Toru Suzuki stammers an apology and turns to make a quick exit. Two soft arms wrap around his waist from behind. Shock freezes Toru Suzuki in place, unable to move a muscle. Ria buries her face into his back, whispering how terrified she had been. Empathy washes over Toru Suzuki, realizing how a warrior fresh from lethal dungeon horrors could feel completely helpless in a strange modern world. Checking through the bathroom door, Toru Suzuki asks if she has recovered, but Ria apologizes and admits she is still shaken. Washing herself in the tub, Ria calls out to check if Toru Suzuki is still on guard, and he promises he is right there. Having promised to stay beside the weeping knight, Toru Suzuki chats with Ria through the wooden door about anything to calm her nerves. Stepping back through the threshold, Toru Suzuki returns to the dungeon. Scanning the silent stone corridor, Toru Suzuki confirms that no monsters lurk nearby. His next move is to press deeper into the ruins. First, he focuses his mind to bring up his status window. A glowing interface materializes right before Toru Suzuki, confirming everything Ria explained. Their conversation through the bath door provided crucial insight into how this fantasy world functions. This dungeon is the Yomi Labyrinth, an ancient sunken city crawling with lethal goblins whose blow dart poisons knocked Ria out cold. Even with knight-tier agility, Ria warned him about elusive slimes that flee in seconds yet yield massive piles of experience points. Shocked by the news of metal slime bonuses, Toru Suzuki blurted out a shout that startled Ria through the wall. Intrigued by the speedy slimes, Toru Suzuki posed as a great sage and asked Ria how ordinary mortals check their numerical status. Ria explained that divine providence allows anyone to visualize their personal numbers simply by focusing their thoughts. Failing to see her stats inside the apartment, Ria panicked until Toru Suzuki bluffed that a ward blocked divine magic in his sanctuary. Relief washes over Ria once she hears his confident explanation. Reasoning that game mechanics only function on dungeon soil, Toru Suzuki felt certain his numbers would manifest out here. Eager to inspect his skills and inventory, Toru Suzuki recalls asking whether monsters could breach the closed metal gate behind her. Ria had apologized, confirming she slammed that heavy door shut before the sleeping toxin overwhelmed her. Knowing the path is sealed, Toru Suzuki heads back to retrieve the shield he left behind, ignoring Ria when she hesitated to trouble him. With Ria resting safely in the warm bath, Toru Suzuki stands in the dungeon corridor, silently activating his status screen. His base combat attributes are low, but Toru Suzuki knows rapid growth is all that matters. Glancing past basic stats, his eyes lock onto the unique skill, Unlimited Growth, alongside a mana pool capable of casting magic. Having verified his profile, Toru Suzuki now turns his attention toward recovering the heavy shield Ria dropped, creeping toward the gear. Toru Suzuki calculates minimal monster danger and plans to use the massive shield as portable cover. Raising his shield, Toru Suzuki spots a hostile slime lurking right in front of him. Panic hits him as the danger turns real, driving Toru Suzuki to bash the slime repeatedly until it pops out of existence. A radiant aura erupts across his skin, prompting Toru Suzuki to snatch his shield and dash out of the chamber. Safe in the hallway, Toru Suzuki calls up his status screen to confirm what just happened. Rushing back inside, pure adrenaline floods his chest with the dread of a fatal encounter. Gasping for air, Toru Suzuki celebrates his victory. He truly crushed a dungeon monster and earned a level up. Eager to test his boosted strength, Toru Suzuki calls out to Ria in the bath, and Ria asks for a few extra minutes inside. Toru Suzuki gladly grants her all the time she needs, grabbing his dynamometer to measure his physical gains. Gripping the device with full force, he registers 44 kilograms, easily beating his old personal limit of 40. Each stat point adds 4 kilograms of pure power, meaning level 10 will let Toru Suzuki crush an apple barehanded at 80 kilograms. Stepping out fresh from the bath, Ria mentions that the modern clothes feel wonderfully comfortable, even if they look unusual on her. Caught off guard by her charm, Toru Suzuki compliments Ria on how great her new hairstyle suits her. Blushing at the praise, Ria explains that her dungeon fall ruined her hair, though she normally ties it up to keep it out of combat. Thanks to the soap Toru Suzuki provided, her locks flow soft and silky with every graceful movement. Fighting the urge to lean in and catch a scent, Toru Suzuki listens as Ria asks if he plans to take his turn in the bath. Ria offers to wait in the bedroom, asking to read the grimoire of the Great Sage, which baffles Toru Suzuki since he only owns manga and doujinshi. Realization strikes like lightning, making Toru Suzuki shriek in terror as Ria urgently asks what went wrong. Pleading with her not to move a muscle, Toru Suzuki gets Ria to promise she will stay right there. Frantically scrambling across the floor, Toru Suzuki shoves every questionable volume into a box and stashes it away. Opening the door with a grave expression, Toru Suzuki informs Ria that they need to discuss something vital. Sitting across the table, Toru Suzuki warns that those texts carry extreme hazards for anyone untrained in their secrets. He sternly labels them forbidden grimoires, leaving Ria stunned as she asks if dangerous black magic truly rests in this room. Terrified that she committed a taboo, Ria apologizes, but Toru Suzuki reassures her and makes her promise never to touch them again. Relieved by her innocence, Toru Suzuki relaxes until Ria asks why such forbidden ancient tomes have illustrated girls on their covers. Changing the subject, Ria worries about wasting precious bathwater, but Toru Suzuki assures her it flows freely from a clean underground spring. Staring at the cup, Ria asks if she might have just one glass of fresh water, making Toru Suzuki realize how precious clean hydration is in a dungeon. Without a single drop of water left, Ria asks if taking a drink is forbidden, but Toru Suzuki instantly reassures her. Stepping over to the refrigerator, Toru Suzuki offers her something far tastier than tap water and invites Ria to pick her favorite. Confused by the bright cans, Ria asks what kind of magical concoctions sit on the shelves, handing her bottled black tea. Toru Suzuki asks if she recognizes it, prompting Ria to gasp at a luxury only high nobility ever taste. Nods of understanding follow as Toru Suzuki figures she has never tasted a real steak either, which Ria readily confirms. Glancing down at the carbonated soda with wide eyes, Ria asks if Toru Suzuki plans to drink one alongside her. Toru Suzuki tells Ria to enjoy the drinks at her own pace before heading off to take a bath, dismissing her worries over the cost. Soaking in the warm water, Toru Suzuki finishes his bath and steps back into the living room completely refreshed. Exhausted from the dungeon chaos, Toru Suzuki remembers he skipped dinner, and noticing Ria is famished, he decides to whip up a hot meal. Turning back toward the table, Toru Suzuki spots Ria clutching her empty drink. When offered the chance to leave the drink if she dislikes it, Ria insists she can take bitter medicine like a proud knight. Explaining that cola began as medicine, Toru Suzuki listens in shock as Ria reveals the lingering paralysis in her limbs just vanished. With a casual shrug, Toru Suzuki tells her that cola truly functions as a miracle potion in this world. Praising the great sage's sacred relics, Ria marvels that a humble beverage dispelled a sleep curse that normally requires mid-tier magic. If cheap supermarket soda cures curses, Toru Suzuki realizes other convenience store items might grant absurd dungeon buffs. Asking what dungeon explorers usually survive on, Toru Suzuki listens as Ria describes rock-hard traveler bread and salted dried fish, grateful for any scrap of survival food. Ria admits the rations taste awful unless soaked in hot broth to soften them up. Sympathizing with her brutal lifestyle, Toru Suzuki starts cooking as Ria perks up at the mouth-watering aroma filling the air. Years of family restaurant kitchen shifts give Toru Toru Suzuki total confidence as he cooks, though Ria frets over using his rations. Unable to eat in front of a starving guest, Toru Suzuki plates 2 portions, prompting Ria to urgently ask him to wait a moment. Hurrying to her pack, Ria hands Toru Suzuki a pouch filled with gleaming gold and silver coins, begging him to accept her humble payment. Rather than taking gold from a penniless knight, Toru Suzuki declines payment, but Ria insists she cannot accept free charity. Claiming great sages deep underground have no use for pocket gold, Toru Suzuki proposes a different trade instead. Surface intelligence and item testing assistance become the new trade conditions which Toru Suzuki offers, so Ria feels comfortable. Relieved to keep her savings, Ria gratefully pledges her help, sealing a win-win partnership with Toru Suzuki. Sizzling hot and beautifully arranged, dinner is served, eyes wide with shock. Ria cannot believe Toru Suzuki prepared such an intricate feast in mere minutes. Inhaling the rich aroma, Toru Suzuki grins, having quickly whipped up microwaved hamburger steak, steamed rice, and fresh salad. A loud rumble from Ria's stomach breaks the silence, making Toru Suzuki chuckle as he invites her to dig in. Unsure how to tackle the gourmet plate, Ria asks for guidance, so Toru Suzuki shows her how to slice the steak with a knife. Piercing the fried egg on top, Toru Suzuki tells Ria to let the golden yolk mix into the savory glaze before taking a bite. Taking her first bite, Ria gasps in pure bliss, though Toru Suzuki laughs that extreme hunger makes any meal taste magical. Even during her days in high nobility, Ria insists she never encountered flavors this extraordinary, pleased by her honest joy. Toru Suzuki reflects on how sharing a hot meal with company beats dining alone every single time. Hot tea and delicate pastries follow the clean plates, as Toru Suzuki asks Ria about the surface world, nibbling the cake. Ria feels a burst of invigorating lightness, asking if this treat is another artifact packed with buffs, as her stamina and mana gauges visibly replenish from the meal. Toru Suzuki realizes this world operates just like an RPG, declaring his cuisine a divine treasure. Ria listens as Toru Suzuki plans a dungeon test and invites her outside for a quick errand. Stepping outside sounds insane to Ria, who reminds Toru Suzuki that opening the door leads straight into monster territory. Puzzled by her terror, Toru Suzuki wonders what Ria actually saw whenever she peered through his apartment window. Beckoning Ria to follow him, Toru Suzuki strides toward the door to demonstrate the truth. Toru Suzuki swings the front door wide open and asks Ria to describe exactly what lies ahead. Assuming he installed windows into solid rock for decoration, Ria compliments Toru Suzuki on his stylish taste in dungeon walls. Baffled by her answer, Toru Suzuki struggles to comprehend why Ria only sees dungeon stone instead of the modern street. Peering out past the doorway, Toru Suzuki confirms that the bustling view is unmistakably modern Japan. Phasing straight through the boundary, Toru Suzuki vanishes into the wall, leaving Ria screaming in awe at his spatial magic. Convenient store bags in hand, Toru Suzuki steps back inside, apologizing that he could not bring Ria along. Calling out a cheerful greeting, Ria's voice echoes from the bathroom, leaving Toru Suzuki stunned that she is still soaking. Gazing into the bath area, Toru Suzuki asks Ria what could possibly be taking her so long in the water. Ria rolls up her sleeves, cheerfully announcing that she decided to tackle the laundry. Watching her scrub the fabrics by hand, Toru Suzuki mumbles about local customs, catching her curious attention. Quick to brush it off, he asks what detergent she used, only for Ria to sheepishly admit to using body soap. Reassuring his companion, Toru Suzuki reveals he brought a modern magical artifact built specifically for laundry. Curious about his otherworldly tools, Ria asks if he has a device capable of drying the wet fabric. He hands over the dryer artifact and explains how to power it, but Ria hesitates with an awkward question. A blush hits Toru Suzuki upon realizing she found his underwear in the basket and thoroughly scrubbed it. Flustered that she cleaned them by hand, he swallows his pride and genuinely thanks her for the effort. Relief washes over Ria, and a warm, radiant smile brightens her face. Once the laundry is hung, Ria asks for a clean rag and olive oil to maintain her protective armor. Handing over the requested supplies, he steps back as Ria diligently sets to work polishing her steel. Rather than interrupting her maintenance to request help with the bed frame, Toru Suzuki tackles the job alone. Inside the bedroom, the manual warns that 2 people are required.
Yet he bets on his own ingenuity.
Heavy wooden panels and awkward bolts prove far more difficult than the simple diagrams suggested. Stepping in after noticing his struggle, Ria grabs the support beams and anchors the bed alongside him. The sturdy construction and soft mattress delight Ria, prompting him to call for a well-earned rest. When Toru Suzuki offers her the mattress and claims the floor, Ria fiercely protests the unequal treatment. Her iron will overpowers his polite protests, forcing Toru Suzuki onto the bed before he dims the light spell. Catching a trace of hesitation across her face, he listens as Ria softly wishes him a peaceful night. Hours into the quiet night, sleep eludes Toru Suzuki because he surrendered his only pillow to Ria. A soft rustle at the doorway reveals Ria standing in the shadows, clutching the soft cushion. Stepping forward in the dark, she quietly asks if he needs the the cushion to rest comfortably. His initial shock fades as Ria insists that she has no need for such luxurious padding. In the dim moonlight, Toru Suzuki catches sight of her trembling fingers, gripping the pillow. Gently reassuring her, Toru Suzuki explains that the soft mattress gives him all the comfort he needs. Offering to share the mattress, Toru Suzuki watches as Ria quietly nods in agreement. Side by side, the two slip under the covers for the night. Though tremors still shake Ria, Toru Suzuki reaches out to grasp her fingers. Grateful for the comfort, Ria squeezes his grip tight. Whispering in the dark, Ria admits his touch feels warm and reassuring, bringing a modest smile to Toru Suzuki. Softly thanking him, Ria closes her eyes, and exhaustion pulls them both into sleep. Morning light breaks as Ria calls out to wake him, greeting Toru Suzuki as he slowly rubs his eyes open. Panic strikes Toru Suzuki as he bolts up screaming, startling Ria. Realizing he actually shared a bed with a girl shatters his inexperienced mind. Scrambling for an excuse, Toru Suzuki blames battle trauma from his sage days. Ria buys the lie, gently asking if he has recovered from yesterday. Memories flood back. His closet door connects to a dungeon where he checked his stats, slew another slime, and unlocked the next floor. On top of that, an otherworldly knight stays under his roof. Unsure what comes next, Toru Suzuki asks Ria to join him for breakfast, and she accepts. Finishing the meal, they begin unpacking cardboard boxes. Toru Suzuki feels guilty for making her work, but Ria insists helping him is her duty. Curious about fantasy lore, Toru Suzuki asks about volcano half-dragons, elves, and dwarves. Ria explains half-dragons never visit human lands, so she knows nothing about them. Switching topics, Toru Suzuki asks about friendly humanoid races. Ria mentions forest elves and half-cats who treat travelers with kindness. The reality that elves and half-cats truly exist thrills Toru Suzuki until Ria discovers a suspicious volume among his belongings. With wide eyes, Ria remarks how unusual it is for an elf to battle a tentacle monster, asking if she may browse through it. In pure panic, Toru Suzuki snatches the explicit volume straight from her hands. A mad sprint down the hallway lets him stash the shameful magazine before rushing back. Breathless and flushed, Toru Suzuki claims that cursed manuscript was a forbidden grimoire best left unopened. Dodging total disaster brings huge relief, prompting Toru Suzuki to suggest a break before any more secrets emerge, which Ria accepts. Pouring a glass to relax, Ria takes a refreshing sip of cold cola. Tasting the cold soda brings genuine delight to Ria, who confesses the sugary fizz is impossible to resist. Toru Suzuki urges her to drink up, quickly steering the talk toward dungeon hazards and asking what deadly slime species lurk below. Ria details the threat of purple slimes filled with lethal venom and dirty yellow variants that spit corrosive acid. Even though Ria assumes a great sage knows every deadly beast, Toru Suzuki admits his combat skills are rusty, recalling his clash with a green slime. Sorting through the supplies continues until Ria uncovers an unexpected bundle, sending a wave of panic straight through Toru Suzuki. Ria brandishes the magazines with a bright smile, calling the featured outfits adorable. Toru Suzuki admits he spotted the cosplay sets at a shop yesterday and bought them on impulse. Curious if it holds dangerous magic, Ria inspects the cloth, unaware that Toru Suzuki bought the swimsuit set simply to keep her clothed until her laundry dries. Fascinated by the foreign designs, Ria accepts the entire wardrobe when Toru Suzuki offers every piece to her. Pure excitement takes over as Ria asks if she can try on the new outfit right away. Before Toru Suzuki can react, Ria dashes straight toward the changing area. A sense of disbelief washes over Toru Suzuki as he stands alone in the room. Moments later, Ria steps back into view, asking Toru Suzuki if the tight outfit suits her. Speechless, Toru Suzuki freezes as his gaze catches how perfectly the snug gym shorts hug her hips. A wild impulse strikes Toru Suzuki to rest his head against Ria, using her lap as a soft pillow. Overhearing his thoughts, Ria chuckles at the flush Toru Suzuki, noting that her drying underwear never looked this good. Night settles in as they finish packing and rest, leaving Toru Suzuki to ask Ria about her next move. Facing his question about returning, Ria admits she was separated from her party deep in the dungeon and lost her sword. Paralyzed by the dungeon trauma, Ria confesses she hoped to catch a ride back with another passing party. Worried about becoming a burden, she hesitates. Yet Toru Suzuki assures her that a great sage has plenty of room for guests. Deeply grateful, Ria insists on heading home eventually, asking if she might visit Toru Suzuki in the future. A warm nod seals the promise that the door remains open whenever she wants to drop by. After Ria steps into the hot bath, Toru Suzuki takes the opportunity to slip back down into the dungeon. Scanning the quiet corridor, he spots no hostile presence, brushing off any threat of a goblin ambush. Ria explained that monsters rarely spawn out of nowhere, leaving him puzzled by that previous slime ambush. Slugs start out fingernail-sized and hide in dark corners, biding their time until they swell large enough to hunt humans. Testing his theory on fantasy food buffs, he unpacks a stash of local provisions to sample on the spot. Local cooking grants massive 50% stat boosts, stacks prior buffs, and restores vitality clarity with each bite. Curious to see the raw numbers, Toru Suzuki opens his status window, testing his boosted stats on a dynamometer. The readout hits 64 kilograms, proving his dungeon gains carry straight into reality. Hungry for more power, Toru Suzuki heads back to hunt down some dungeon slimes. A tiny white creature soon wriggles into view before him. Squashing something this tiny yields 0 experience, but letting it grow or multiply could create an endless farm. A captive monster farm offers an effortless shortcut to rapid leveling. Back home, he preps a ventilated container with water and scraps, relieved that a harmless white slime beats a toxic yellow or purple one. Watching the cute blob settle in, Toru Suzuki decides he can always hunt bigger monsters for grinding later. Ria still carries dungeon trauma, so footsteps leaving the bathroom send him scrambling to stash the monster out of sight. He shoves the jar into an off-limits manga box and whispers for the critter to study the forbidden grimoires. Ria steps into the room asking what the commotion is about, but Toru Suzuki brushes it off as nothing. She lets him know the bath is open, and Toru Suzuki thanks her before heading in. Submerged in the hot water, he lets the tension soak out of his muscles. Harboring an otherworldly creature under his roof is risky, especially if Ria catches a glimpse of it. The slime must go straight back into the dungeon before complications arise. Out of the bath, Toru Suzuki retrieves the container from its hiding spot. The lid sits crooked and loose, making him wonder if he forgot to seal it shut. Ria spots him at the door and asks where he is off to, and Toru Suzuki promises he will return from the dungeon shortly. Setting the creature down in the dungeon, Toru Suzuki promises to return soon with tasty treats and a bigger shelter. Upon his return, Toru Suzuki casually asks Ria about light slimes, shocked to hear they are an endangered species. Ria explains that Peaceful Breed vanished 2 decades ago, proving just how precious this find really is. Since it poses no danger, Toru Suzuki announces another quick trip underground, and Ria urges him to stay safe. Back at the dungeon drop point, Toru Suzuki discovers the empty box and spots an unfamiliar figure nearby. Resting on the cold stone is a detailed figurine of Kokoni Miru. The collectible feels remarkably soft and silky smooth to the touch. Unable to recall ever buying it, Toru Suzuki slips the mysterious item straight into his pocket. No trace remains of the elusive white slime, settling for an ordinary slug. Toru Suzuki picks it up with a sigh, only for the creature to chomp right into his finger. Wincing at the sharp bite, Toru Suzuki locks the unruly beast into a glass jar until it learns some manners. Back at their quarters, Toru Suzuki greets Ria, claiming forbidden grimoire studies kept him occupied far longer than planned. Examining the crafted figurine, he admires its flawless detail regardless of the base material. The hunt for the creature consumed the entire evening, leaving further experimentation for tomorrow. Stepping into the bedroom, Toru Suzuki announces to Ria that it is time to turn in for the night. Hours later, rest completely eludes Toru Suzuki once again. Sharing a bed remains necessary because Ria fears the dark, an arrangement neither of them minds. Tonight, she wore snug athletic shorts, and her bare legs brush against him beneath the sheets. Tormented by sleeplessness and his own wardrobe choices for her, Toru Suzuki tosses and turns in bed. Opening his eyes to a looming silhouette, Toru Suzuki whispers to Ria, only to find the real Ria fast asleep beside him. Utter confusion grips his mind as 2 identical copies of Ria exist at the same moment. Panic strikes Toru Suzuki one. Ria slumbers peacefully under the blanket. Yet another stands upright right over the bed. This standing doppelganger is noticeably smaller in stature. Questioning his sanity, Toru Suzuki listens in shock as the miniature Ria addresses him as master and asks if her mimicry matches. She boldly adds that every detail beneath her garments matches the original. Flustered, Toru Suzuki yelps and snatches the shifting slug before a startled Ria wakes up and asks about the noise. Covering his tracks, Toru Suzuki claims he had a sage flashback about the 5th magical catastrophe, leaving Ria in awe. Settling back into bed, Ria reassures Toru Suzuki that she is right here to protect his peace of mind. To soothe him, Ria hums a gentle lullaby until sleep overtakes her. Once Ria drifts into deep slumber, Toru Suzuki slips out of bed, amazed at how fast she drifted off. Quietly stepping into the corridor, Toru Suzuki closes the door behind him. With an outstretched palm, he confronts the perched slug, questioning if its antics stem from holding a grudge. Demanding decorum, Toru Suzuki insists that the creature wear proper shorts. Under the corridor light, a startling realization dawns on him as he inspects the slug. The slime squeaks back, denying that it is an ordinary monster. Tears well up in the tiny monster, prompting Toru Suzuki to hush it and ask if it is a white slime. Confirming its identity, the slime explains it shifted into Ria in shorts, simply to please Toru Suzuki. When Toru Suzuki questions the title of master, the slime replies that he is the first human it ever encountered. No food was offered and no formal pact was forged, leaving Toru Suzuki utterly baffled by its loyalty. Shaking its gelatinous head, the slime points out that its new master clearly harbors affection for the girl. Such devotion spoken in the miniature form of Ria flusters Toru Suzuki, especially as it pledges absolute obedience. The charm of this mini Ria is undeniably adorable, yet Toru Suzuki cannot forget it is fundamentally a slime. Inquiring about its gender, Toru Suzuki learns that slimes possess no biological concept of male or female, promising only a minor tickle. The creature slips directly inside the pants of Toru Suzuki, making him shriek in alarm. Cold, squishy slime slithers relentlessly up his leg. Gasping for breath, Toru Suzuki demands an explanation, only for the creature to apologize and mention a bodily scan. Shifting into Ria once more, the slime invites Toru Suzuki to observe the results. As she strips off her shorts, Toru Suzuki snaps his head away and orders her to halt. Catching sight of a hermaphroditic hybrid form, Toru Suzuki screams in pure horror. Alerted by the commotion, Ria bursts through the doorway demanding to know what happened. Feigning embarrassment, Toru Suzuki bluffs about a sage nightmare where he stopped an exploding mana reactor in his sleep. Gentle words from Ria follow as she insists on staying close by his side until morning. Back under the covers, Ria dozes off almost instantly against his chest. Sneaking back outside, Toru Suzuki accepts the apology from the slime and firmly instructs her to pick a single gender. With an obedient nod, she promises to comply, adding that eating human food will let her grow and grant any wish. Declining the offer, Toru Suzuki inquires why a rare white slime is so eager to serve him. She reveals that ancient white slime clans coexisted with humans, shifting into loved ones to nurture their masters. Cruel masters eventually exploited this devoted nature, forcing the entire white slime race into deep underground exile. Believing humanity still holds goodness, she ventured forth alone, making Toru Suzuki the first person she ever met. Meeting Toru Suzuki brings pure joy to the little creature, though he quietly reflects on his isolation as an otherworldly traveler. Her evolving shape-shifting potential fascinates him, so he offers meals in exchange for assistance, prompting her to ask if he expects something lewd. Flushing red, Toru Suzuki quickly changes the subject to food preferences, prompting Ria to chime in that human dishes are renowned for their flavor. With monsters exchanging rumors among themselves, Toru Suzuki promises a hot meal, earning sincere gratitude from the little guest. Minutes later, a fresh salad is ready, and she grips an oversized fork with delight before Toru Suzuki asks what she normally eats. Surviving strictly on dungeon moss and monster carcasses explains why simple greens taste divine to the starved creature. Her tiny hands struggle to balance the heavy silver fork, swinging it with comical effort. Toru Suzuki encourages her to drop the humanoid facade to eat comfortably, but she worries her master will punish the shift. Assured that he will never get angry, she happily melts back into a soft blob with heartfelt thanks. Crisp lettuce leaves vanish into her translucent body, absorbed in seconds. Witnessing her unique digestion firsthand, Toru Suzuki asks if she possesses a proper name. Without an identity of her own, she is stunned when Toru Suzuki offers to bestow one simply for convenience. Old legends of monsters befriending humans and receiving titles flash through her mind with deep reverence. Inspired by her round, crystal-clear body, Toru Suzuki proposes the name Shizuku. Adoring the sound of Shizuku, she beams as Toru Suzuki officially seals the moniker. A massive growth spurt reveals that human nutrition acts as an explosive catalyst for monsters like Shizuku. Capable of taking full human size by absorbing water and air, Shizuku is directed toward the bathroom by Toru Suzuki. Once the tub fills to the brim, Shizuku begins her transformation, swelling rapidly into a mature figure. Managing the heavy liquid weight of her expanded form, Shizuku gladly agrees when Toru Suzuki offers another round of food. Every scrap of food vanishes as she devours the meal, sending Toru Suzuki straight back to the stove. Steaming bowls of hearty bukkake noodles are served next. Next comes a freshly baked pizza, sliced and piping hot. Warm milk and sweet buns complete the feast, filling her with pure bliss. Stuffed and satisfied, Shizuku asks what kind of labor her master expects in return. Mentioning his family diner shifts, Toru Suzuki is stunned when Shizuku casually understands the concept of part-time work. Explaining his routine, Toru Suzuki mentions his part-time shift at a restaurant. Shizuku nods, recalling stories the elders told her about eateries in the human realm. His plan is simple. Shizuku must shapeshift into his double to watch over Ria during his shift, and the slime eagerly agrees. Unease gnaws at Toru Suzuki over leaving Ria unprotected, so Shizuku prepares to copy his form. Without warning, the slime girl wraps her arms around Toru Suzuki in a tight embrace. Requesting permission to examine Toru Suzuki's body, she promises a flawless mimicry if he stays still. As Toru Suzuki braces for the odd sensation, Shizuku asks him to relax and remain gentle. An unbearable tickling sensation makes Toru Suzuki squirm, though Shizuku urges him to hold on just a bit longer. Completing her physical scan, Shizuku receives a scolding from Toru Suzuki to give fair warning next time, offering a quick apology. Her body morphs into an exact copy of Toru Suzuki, giving him the bizarre sensation of facing an uncanny reflection. Admiring his appearance, Shizuku calls him impressive, so Toru Suzuki instructs his double to guard Ria and act wise. Feeling guilty about eating expensive human food for free, Shizuku offers to earn her keep, though Toru Suzuki refuses to burden her. Though broke, Shizuku insists on repaying Toru Suzuki, confidently assuring him that his chores are well within her abilities. Reaching for the pantry, Shizuku asks permission to use the ingredients, and Toru Suzuki gives his nod. Her hands blur across the counter as Shizuku starts cooking in record time. Using simple plain bread, Shizuku proudly presents an authentic bread pizza. Astonishment strikes Toru Suzuki as Shizuku serves an exact duplicate of a recipe he recently made. Taking a bite, Toru Suzuki praises the incredible flavor, delighting Shizuku as she reveals her full scan copied his memories and behavior patterns. Shizuku mimics his mannerisms with astonishing speed, making Toru Suzuki wonder if the dungeon vanishes during work, and if they could ever trade places. When Toru Suzuki asks if she wants to see his workplace firsthand, Shizuku gives an enthusiastic nod. Pockets can no longer hide her growing size, and though she offers to take the form of Ria, strict workplace rules forbid anyone but staff. Undeterred, Shizuku points out that stealth solves everything, proposing to shapeshift into clothes for him to wear. The plan requires him to strip completely bare so she can form the garments, a bizarre prospect Toru Suzuki finds intriguing. Shedding his clothes leaves Toru Suzuki flushed with deep embarrassment under her direct gaze. Murmuring an apology, Shizuku glides forward and wraps her fluid body directly around Toru Suzuki. Shifting into fabric, Shizuku wraps around Toru like everyday clothes, her viscous slime clinging tight as she embraces him. She quickly apologizes, confessing she could not resist squeezing his attractive build. Toru sternly orders her to cut it out. Smothered by the tight squeeze, he demands breathing room. Out on the midnight streets, Shizuku marvels at a modern city far beyond the rumors she heard back home. Convinced now that he truly came from another world, she listens as Toru promises details later and focuses on the essentials. Pointing at a passing car, Toru explains it functions like a high-speed carriage that can kill on impact, which Shizuku remembers from books. With the roads deserted past midnight, he points out the traffic lights and explains the separation between roadways and walkways. Arriving outside his workplace, Toru warns Shizuku to stay quiet and avoid causing trouble, which she readily promises. A co-worker welcomes Toru Suzuki at the entrance, waving off his apology for taking emergency time off before tomorrow's shift. Asked if his new place is haunted, Toru laughs that no ghosts materialized, only a rogue knight and a slime girl. When she asks why he dropped by so late, Toru explains he wanted to organize his locker ahead of tomorrow's shift. Praising his work ethic and cooking skill, she compliments his passion for the kitchen, which Toru genuinely shares. When Toru asks about tonight's cook, he learns Sagawa had an urgent meeting, forcing the manager to step in. Toru heads toward the back to greet the manager. Stepping into the kitchen, he calls out a polite greeting to his boss. The manager asks if Toru can take over later, and Toru gladly confirms he is already scheduled. Relieved, the manager mentions wild rumors about Toru moving to a cursed home and never returning, prompting a wry laugh from Toru. Unable to train Shizuku with company around, Toru thanks the manager for the leave and offers to run the kitchen so the man can rest. Though the manager hesitates to accept help on an off day, Toru assures him he wants to prep for tomorrow and heads off to change. In the break room, Toru shows Shizuku his uniform, prompting her to mimic the fabric until his outfit shifts into a cook's uniform. Toru returns to the line, sending the thankful manager off on a 30-minute break. Confident the timid manager will suspect nothing, Toru points Shizuku toward the recipe guide on the wall to walk her through the menu. He asks Shizuku if she can manage the orders. Shizuku memorizes the recipes instantly, right before a panicked server rushes in to report a rowdy gang of teenagers. These are no ordinary teens, but notorious troublemakers known for posturing, demanding huge orders, and starting fights. With the manager nowhere outside, the desperate waitress asks if she can rely on Toru to handle the rush. Toru never planned on unpaid labor, but since he offered, he steps up just as Shizuku begs to take the line. Urging her master to observe, Shizuku takes the wheel, guiding Toru's arms and legs with machine-like precision. Skillets sizzle as she cooks every order flawlessly, leaving Toru awestruck by her perfection. Amazed that she executed every recipe perfectly, Toru praises her performance, realizing he can safely entrust his shifts to Shizuku. Back home by 5 in the morning, Toru sighs at having to report back for duty in 3 short hours. Shizuku offers to cover the shift so he can rest with Ria, but Toru insists on fulfilling his own obligations. Asking to sleep beside them, Shizuku receives Toru's permission on the condition that she keeps quiet, so Ria does not spot her. Under the warm blankets, Shizuku curls up between Toru and Ria. Her master's bed feels warm and inviting. Drifting into a deep slumber, the household rests peacefully. The ringing alarm wakes Toru, who gasps upon seeing the clock already pointing to 10 in the morning. His shift started at 8, yet his early alarm was altered, followed by an unread text message from Shizuku. Toru realizes that she slipped away to cover the restaurant shift in his place. Walking into the kitchen, he finds Ria already up and waiting. When Ria asks about his sickness from earlier, Toru realizes Shizuku mimicked his form and feigned illness to cover her exit, assuring Ria he is fine. Toru hears she enjoyed the sandwich Shizuku prepared, finding the slime's thoughtfulness endearing. Ready for his part-time shift, Toru activates travel magic as Ria cheerfully bids him a safe trip. Disguised in a hat, glasses, and mask, Toru enters his workplace, where a wary Tateshi asks if he wants a table for one. Tateshi stands at the host stand, but the usually calm high school girl is thoroughly unnerved by his suspicious getup. With another version of him in the kitchen, staying undercover is crucial, so he asks for a solo table and lets her seat him. Pleased to be placed at a secluded back booth, Toru promptly orders a mixed meat platter. Scanning the dining room, he sees happy diners and smooth service, confirming Shizuku is managing the kitchen flawlessly. Tateshi soon returns to deliver his freshly prepared meat platter. One taste confirms it. Shizuku cooked the dish to absolute perfection, presenting it beautifully before he hits the call button. Tateshi hurries over to ask if there is an issue, but Toru simply requests to see the chef. Her cheeks flush with utter embarrassment at the bizarre request. That panicked expression confirms how absurd this sounds in a casual diner. Yet Toru insists it must be done. Rising from his seat, he announces to the entire room that the meal was too magnificent not to praise the cook in person. Promising to bring the cook out immediately, Tateshi leaves as Toru braces for the staff gossip that will follow. Moments later, Shizuku steps up to the booth, thanking the valued guest for waiting. Recognition hits instantly and panic visibly tightens across her face. Praising the exquisite flavor, Toru stands up and instructs Shizuku to meet him in the restroom. A brief flicker of hesitation holds her back. Nevertheless, she heads straight for the restroom stalls. Toru whispers a frantic lecture about her reckless stunt, but when Shizuku offers an earnest apology, he agrees to cover the rest of the shift. Worried she caused him trouble, Shizuku listens as he reassures her and proposes an immediate swap. Stepping out first, Toru gives her time to change, finish the meal, and rush home to cook for Ria. Complete trust rests on her shoulders. Exhaustion weighs on every step as Toru finally trudges home after his grueling shift. The workplace atmosphere felt surprisingly warm today, with even the aloof Tateshi treating him kindly thanks to Shizuku. Reaching the front door, he realizes crossing the threshold means two identical versions of himself inside. Crossing the threshold, his foot lands directly on something soft and squishy. A startled yelp escapes him before Ria pops up to compliment his incredible hiding spot, prompting a nervous laugh. Shizuku clearly invented a game of hide and seek to mask the swap, and now Ria eagerly claims her turn to hide. Pleading sheer exhaustion, Toru asks for a break, prompting Ria to gladly sit down and polish her armor instead. Toru sinks into a chair to catch his breath. Creeping beside him, Shizuku quietly apologizes for acting behind his back without permission. Reassuring her that all is forgiven, Toru promises to ask for her aid in the future and inquires what drove her to do it. Shizuku explains that other slimes taught her to serve humans, plus she felt indebted after eating so much of his food. Touched that a white slime places such deep faith in him, Toru vows to handle work himself and save her talents for the impossible tasks. A gentle pat on her head seals the promise. Shizuku wishes he would master more slimes, making Toru chuckle at the thought of feeding a whole army before she slips into bed for the night. 2 in the morning strikes, snapping Toru wide awake. Slipping out of bed to depart, he stops in his tracks as Shizuku calls out to ask where he is headed. The unexpected voice catches him completely off guard. Toru explains his plan to grind levels in the dungeon, earning a sweet plea from Shizuku to stay safe. Arriving in the dungeon depths, Toru stares in bafflement at a massive swarm of vicious blue slugs. Leaving that single blue slime in the crate earlier has spawned an entire infestation, tempting him to flee until he remembers his goal to level up. This massive swarm is actually an ideal jackpot of free experience. Wiping sweat from his brow, Toru catches his breath after clearing every last monster from the room. Regret hits as he surveys the empty floor, realizing no more monsters remain to yield experience. Slaying the multiplied horde successfully leveled him up, and eating a snack fully restores his health. Toru watches his stats climb, yet the hunger to push his level even higher remains unsated. Rounding the corner, he confirms that the chamber has been cleared down to the last slug. Searching for any stray survivors, his eyes lock onto a heavy iron door. Remembering Ria sealed this barrier to escape monster pursuit, Toru hesitates, knowing opening it invites unknown horrors. Danger looms on the other side, so a cautious peek is his safest move. Toru pulls the door open, only to freeze in utter confusion at what lies beyond. Solid stone stands right against the threshold, blocking the passage completely. Ria spoke no lie when fleeing this way, making this dead end impossible for Toru to explain. Her earlier warning about a stone wall blocking her exit echoes in his mind just as rhythmic knocking starts. Suspecting beasts on the other side, he jumps as a desperate cry pierces the barrier. The stone barrier breaks and Dado bursts straight through into the chamber. A desperate shove sends Toru Suzuki sprawling to the stone floor, catching sight of a girl dressed like a spellcaster. Between the pointed black hat, dark robes, and carved wooden staff in her grip, there is no mistaking her trade. "Slam the door shut!" she shrieks, pointing back toward the corridor where a colossal centipede rushes toward them. Grabbing the iron handle, battle, Toru hauls the heavy barrier shut, yet the beast's mandibles squeeze right through the gap. Cold dread spikes straight down his spine. Its towering bulk makes direct combat suicide, but the slamming door catches the monster right across its armored midsection, pinned fast in the doorway. The thrashing horror cannot budge. "Stand back, your weapons cannot pierce that shell," the mage yells, raising her staff to unleash her own power. Chanting the spell Inferno, she unleashes a roaring pillar of crimson fire directly into the trapped monster. Screeches tear from the blazing abomination, leaving Toru Suzuki in absolute awe of such destructive power. Charred and motionless, the smoking carcass drops dead onto the stone. Turning back toward the room, Toru Suzuki spots the girl collapsed, cold on the floor. Rushing to her side, he kneels down and checks for a pulse. Her eyes snap open in sheer panic as she screams for him to watch his back. The twitching beast lunges from behind, but Toru Suzuki swings his pickaxe with everything he has. A heavy blow crushes its skull, triggering a level-up chime in his ears. Catching his breath in astonishment, he prays that final strike finished the nightmare for good. Brushing the fight aside, he checks her condition, only for the girl to gasp that the monster's strike injected lethal venom. Paralysis is merely the first stage, followed by a slow death unless high-tier healing magic purges the toxin. Labored breaths rattle in her chest as she despairs over meeting a horrific end in this damp corridor. Toru Suzuki quickly unzips his backpack and pulls out a bottle of cola. Recalling how the soda cured Ria of her paralysis, he urges the dying mage to swallow a drink. Lacking the strength to even part her lips, she cannot drink, prompting him to fill his own mouth with the soda. Pressing his lips to hers, he passes the dark liquid directly into her mouth to save her life. Violent coughs rack her frame as the carbonated remedy rushes down her throat. Stunned as the poison drains away, she listens as Toru boldly bluffs that the drink is an all-curing panacea. Gulping down more, she marvels at the sweet, tingling black tonic that neutralized a deadly toxin in seconds. Relieved she survived, Toru offers to guide her to a safe refuge, yet she glares back. Get it over with. The girl snaps, bracing for the worst, catching Toru Suzuki off guard. Dwelling in such a desolate dungeon in strange modern clothes convinces her he must be an outlaw. With no valuables to her name, she asks if claiming her body was his true reason for stepping in. Toru Suzuki frantically objects, swearing on his honor that he only wanted to save her life. Guilt strikes him as he dreads explaining this mess to Ria, bewildered by his urge to apologize. Sizing up his strange outfit, she questions why anyone sane would inhabit a dungeon and demands his name. Put on the spot, Toru Suzuki claims he is merely a hermit escaping the chaotic outside world. A quiet sigh escapes her lips as she extends her hand, leaving Toru Suzuki confused by the unexpected gesture. Too weak to walk on her own, she asks him to take her hand and lead her to safety. Gathering her into his arms, Toru Suzuki carries her along until a soft apology breaks the silence. Her unexpected change of heart makes heat rush straight to his cheeks. Ashamed of her accusations after he saved her life, she apologizes, but Toru Suzuki shrugs it off kindly. A soft smile forms on her lips, praising his gentle nature after her terrifying flight from the centipede. Reassuring her, Toru Suzuki promises she can relax now, pointing toward a bizarre door just ahead. Before them lies only a solid wall, and she points out that nothing else exists in the corridor. Toru Suzuki swings the invisible entrance wide open, yet to her eyes nothing changes at all. Remembering how easily he carried Ria into his room, the secret of the hidden barrier clicks into place. Terror surges through her anew and she frantically demands he release her on the spot. Without hesitation, Toru Suzuki lunges forward, and she braces with shut eyes as they phase through stone. Blinking her eyes open, total astonishment overtakes her at the sight of an unknown room. Direct contact proves his theory. Others see only rock, but touching Toru Suzuki lets them pass through any portal. Right on cue, Shizuku emerges to warmly welcome her master back. Spotting a white slime in the shelter catches the sorceress off guard, but Shizuku proudly confirms her rare nature. Toru Suzuki explains their guest is an ailing mage weak from venom, asking Shizuku to slip off the woman's muddy boots. Without hesitation, Shizuku slides the leather boots free from the weary traveler's feet. With her footwear removed, Toru Suzuki thanks Shizuku and welcomes their guest deeper into the room. Moments later, Toru Suzuki checks on her recovery, and she confesses her health has returned even if she is overwhelmed. To her utter bewilderment, an upscale refuge exists deep inside the dungeon alongside an extraordinary white slime. Locking eyes with Toru Suzuki, she asks if he is a legendary sage, before teasingly untying her travel garments. Her heavy robe drops to the floor, exposing a revealing outfit that catches Toru Suzuki off guard. Once her wide-brimmed hat comes off, pointed elven ears emerge from beneath her silver hair. When questioned about her heritage, she reveals she is a high elf and expresses shock that he has never met one before. Smirking with absolute confidence, she insists that human men can never resist the beauty of her people. A warm embrace follows as she pulls Toru Suzuki close, purring that highborn elves never leave a debt unpaid. Penniless and stripped of her pride, Dato has nothing left to offer Toru Suzuki except her own curious fascination. compassion. Her own body is the only payment she can provide, offered purely out of gratitude. Waving his hands in a panic, Toru Suzuki begs her to stop, pointing out that Shizuku is peeking right at them. Blustered, Shizuku offers to melt into the floorboards if they need privacy, promising to vanish completely. Glancing down, Toru Suzuki recalls seeing Ria in the bath, yet Dato has curves that dwarf even that memory. Before he can process Ria sleeping next door, the drowsy knight wanders in, demanding why Toru Suzuki made noise, freezing the entire room. Desperate to clear the air, Toru Suzuki frantically assures Ria that the situation is a complete misunderstanding. Gasping in shock, Ria shrieks at the sight of the lonely sorceress Dato, who instantly recognizes the omnipresent knight Ria in return. Toru Suzuki blinks in disbelief as the two women recognize each other. A tense silence settles over the room as Ria, Toru Suzuki, and Dato gather around the wooden table. Heavy, awkward tension hangs thick between the three of them. Breaking the quiet, Toru Suzuki asks how they know each other, getting an eager nod from Ria and an outright denial from Dato. Ria insists she kept inviting Dato to party up, yet Dato snaps that Ria constantly nags, meddles, and ruins the mood. Flustered, Ria snaps back after Dato hints that what happened between her and Toru Suzuki crossed a line. Dato shrugs at the accusation, asking Ria why she makes such a fuss over completely normal human behavior. Probing further, Dato asks if jealousy is eating her up because nothing happened yet, making Ria plead with her to drop it. Sensing the rising tension, Toru Suzuki steps in to cool the room, urging the wounded Dato to get some rest in bed. His plan to sleep in the living room with Ria wins her approval, but Dato immediately objects. Leaving the great sage on the floor of his own home shames Ria as a knight, so Dato insists both women take the living room. Alone in bed, Toru Suzuki realizes this is the first solitary night he has had since moving into the house. Between dungeon raids, taking in Ria, and sheltering Dato, two stunning women now revere him as a great sage, leaving him stunned. Deep down, he knows he never earned the title of sage. Rolling over under the covers, he finds Dato staring right back at him. Startled awake, Toru Suzuki gasps and demands to know why Dato left Ria alone in the living room. Dato explains that Ria drifted off in seconds, sleeping as peacefully as a child. Hearing his muttered confession that he is no sage, Dato presses him to explain the slip of the tongue. Admitting the truth, Toru Suzuki apologizes for deceiving Dato and confesses that his reputation was a lie. Titles mean nothing to Dato because whether Toru Suzuki is a sage or not, he still saved her life. Confident her presence will cheer him up, Dato smiles, prompting Toru Suzuki to ask what she means. Since Toru Suzuki shared his secret, Dato declares it is only fair she returns the favor. Her confession catches him off guard when Dato admits she has zero romantic experience. Surprised by her revealing outfit, Toru Suzuki listens as Dato explains that long elf lifespans keep their desires naturally low. Swearing him to secrecy from Ria, Dato proposes dropping formalities so they can address each other as Dato and Toru Suzuki. Surrounded by strange artifacts unknown even to a high elf, Dato asks what kind of place this room truly is. Frankly, Toru Suzuki explains that this room bridges directly into an entirely different world. To Dato, the claim sounds impossible since this resembles no magical sanctuary, phantom realm, or palace. Toru Suzuki admits he once doubted alternate realities himself, leaving Dato bewildered by the revelation. Curious, Dato asks why his native tongue matches the language of monsters, prompting Toru Suzuki to call it a strange coincidence. Recalling Ria's words, Toru Suzuki finds it bizarre that Japanese serves as the monster tongue across worlds. Dato explains that every intelligent beast uses it during combat. That understanding grants a tactical edge in battle, driving adventurers to seek translators even if almost none can read or write the script. Since Dato and Ria speak an otherworldly tongue that echoes straight into his mind, Toru Suzuki asks how their mutual comprehension works. Dato calls it the language of understanding, a telepathic translation skill that effortlessly bridges speech across foreign nations and dimensions. Marveling at such incredible convenience, Toru Suzuki looks up just as Dato turns toward him, expecting her to resume where she left off. Toru Suzuki watches Dato beam with excitement as she asks to explore his world. After changing Dato into modern attire, Toru Suzuki leads her straight through the dungeon wall. Clinging to his arm, Dato confirms she can only cross the boundary by holding on to Toru Suzuki. Toru Suzuki warns Dato to tuck her pointed ears beneath a hat, preventing a panic in a world where elves do not exist. Complying immediately, Dato pulls the brim down low over her head, reminding her that Earth lacks telepathy. Toru Suzuki cautions Dato to keep her voice down in public. Stepping onto the bustling street, Dato gasps in wide-eyed awe at Japan, the modern world of Toru Suzuki. Her wonder shatters the moment a car speeds past, terrifying Dato into a frantic shriek. Pulling her safely to the sidewalk, Toru Suzuki reminds Dato to stay quiet, though she trembles in shock at the terrifying machine. Crowds still pack the sidewalks outside popular storefronts, prompting Toru Suzuki to guide their stroll down the walkway. Gazing around, Dato asks Toru Suzuki if all these luminous displays are truly for sale, and he nods. A sharp pain strikes her eyes, prompting Dato to complain about the overwhelming neon glare. Pausing to let Dato adjust to the intense illumination, Toru Suzuki spots a nearby sweets stand. Directing Dato to wait for a moment, Toru Suzuki steps over to the counter to place an order. At the food stall, Toru Suzuki orders a sweet chocolate banana crepe from the vendor. Turning back, Toru Suzuki spots two young men cornering Dato, calling her gorgeous and pretending to offer help. Dato clenches her fists as their pushy behavior tests her patience. Toru Suzuki steps in and apologizes, explaining Dato is a foreigner who cannot speak the language, prompting the two men to back off and leave. Grumbling in disgust, Dato scoffs at how brazenly total strangers dare to approach someone on the street. Handing Dato the warm crepe, Toru Suzuki urges her to eat and restore her good mood. Examining the sweet folded pancake, Dato takes a hesitant first bite. Her face instantly lights up with joy as Dato devours the delicious confection. Toru Suzuki watches her eat with quiet amusement. Flustered by her own appetite, Dato apologizes for clearing the plate, and Toru Suzuki gently cleans her cheek. Assuring Dato she can have as many as she desires, Toru Suzuki chuckles, prompting her to demand he stop laughing. An apology from Toru Suzuki falls on deaf ears as Dato puffs her cheeks and claims it was nothing special. Teasing that he will finish the remainder, Toru Suzuki raises the pastry to his lips, only to freeze under the piercing glare of Dato. Claiming he is already full, Toru Suzuki offers the treat back, and Dato gladly accepts. Entering a massive shopping mall, Dato marvels at the endless rows of unfamiliar merchandise. Spotting outfits identical to what Ria wears, Dato announces a startling realization, prompting Toru Suzuki to ask what she figured out. Dato declares with absolute certainty that this shop sells clothes meant for wicked men. Accusing Toru Suzuki of wickedness for dressing Ria in such garments, Dato learns it was an experiment since Japanese items grant dungeon buffs. Surprised by this revelation, Dato listens as Toru Suzuki notes that modern food boosted his parameters, though clothing remains untested. Earth attire could realistically enhance combat statistics, Dato admits. Though Ria hesitates to return to the dungeon, Toru Suzuki offers to buy test outfits, confident the styles will look amazing on Dato. Finishing their shopping spree, they complete the purchase of the new wardrobe. Dato praises Japan for its grand stores, delicious food, and incredible wonders, delighting Toru Suzuki that she enjoyed the trip. Returning home to find Ria fast asleep, Toru Suzuki breathes a sigh of relief that their outing went smoothly without incident. Nodding in agreement, Dato confirms the knight is resting deeply without stirring. Asking if Dato truly hates Ria, Toru Suzuki learns the knight causes headaches, yet lacks hypocrisy, though Dato refuses to admit friendship. Toru Suzuki encourages Dato to keep an open mind, pointing out that sharing the same roof offers the perfect chance to bond. Cooperation depends entirely on her mood. Dato retorts, leaving Toru Suzuki to ponder her solitary dungeon dive. A cheeky request from Dato to share the bed gets promptly denied under the house rules of Toru Suzuki. The following morning, Ria rouses Toru Suzuki from his slumber. Declaring that daylight has arrived, Ria urges Toru Suzuki to get out of bed and begin the day. Groaning from beneath the blanket, Toru insists it is his day off, but Ria drags him up, warning that rotting in bed ruins his health. Without mercy, the knight shoves him straight toward the sink to wash his face and brush his teeth. Breakfast is already waiting on the table, freshly prepared before he even opened his eyes. Stepping into the bathroom, Toru blinks in surprise to find Dato standing right there. Toru mumbles that Ria truly earned her annoying knight title, making Dato tilt her head in curiosity. Moving to the kitchen, he fills a cup with fresh milk to start their morning meal. Ria questions the simple meal, and Dato hesitates over the dairy, but Toru urges them to taste the cereal packed with dried fruit. One spoonful instantly wins them over, leaving Dato amazed by the sweet crunch. Ria marvels at how effortless it is, praising Toru as a brilliant sage who commands otherworldly cuisine. Leaving Ria in charge of unpacking after their move, Toru heads to his room, assuring her he will answer whenever she calls. Alone at last, Toru pulls out his computer to finally get down to business. Dato peers over his shoulder in wonder, asking what the glowing screen is, and Toru explains it is a monitor. Plugging the cables into the desktop tower, he hits the power button and boots the machine up. Relieved the PC survived intact, Toru promises endless internet wonders when Dato stares blankly at the boot screen. A digital idol pops onto the display, prompting a startled Dato to ask if a fairy lives inside the box. Toru explains that she is a pop singer, noting this machine can research other worlds just as easily. Awestruck by modern technology, Dato gasps when Toru suggests they might even map out the dungeon layout with it. Before digging deeper, Toru asks to inspect foreign currency, so Dato tells him to wait and fetches her coin purse. Handing over the pouch, Dato reminds Toru of their secret deal regarding the slain beasts, keeping her lips sealed. Examining the coins, Toru learns from Dato that they are Godius gold coins, imperial currency, and commemorative mints. Curious if these precious metals hold value here, Toru follows up with a small request. When he asks to spend them on lanterns and snacks, Dato gladly permits it, though she wonders if modern shops accept foreign gold. Toru reassures her that pure gold is universally prized anywhere on Earth. Grateful for her new outfit, Dato urges him to take whatever he needs, noting stat-boosting gear from Earth is rarer than any black market treasure. Wondering if the outfit could fetch a fortune at the black auction, Toru pockets 1 coin of each type for testing. Offering Dato a hot bath, Toru confirms he has a real tub, catching the elf completely off guard. Stepping into the hall, Toru calls Ria over and asks if she will bathe with Dato, startling the elf. Though Dato insists she can manage alone, Ria takes charge to guide her through modern bathroom plumbing. Ria warns of scalding dangers, freeing Toru to dress and slip out without Dato tailing him. At the precious metals counter, the appraiser offers 106,400 yen, astounding Toru with the payout. The small coin fetches 9,400 yen and the portrait piece 97,000, leaving the platinum-plated metal for expert analysis. When the clerk asks to keep the rare metal for inspection, Toru declines and walks away satisfied with cash for the first 2. Heading home with his haul, Toru decides against frequent exchanges to avoid raising red flags with authorities. Armed with cash, his thoughts return to last night, when he and Dato explored the dungeon after Ria fell asleep, and he gained a level. Toru mentions slaying a giant centipede, prompting Dato to demand a look at his status sheet. Opening his profile, Dato notes his full name is Toru Suzuki, and he is 21, though his class remains completely unknown. Spotting the unlimited growth skill at level 4, Dato expresses utter envy over a blessing she spent centuries chasing. Her admiration softens into sorrow as Dato remarks on how brief human lifespans are. Clarifying her point, Dato explains that long-lived elves can grind forever, whereas humans often die long before hitting their level cap. As Toru sighs, Dato adds that felling a giant centipede at level 1 is an extraordinary stroke of beginner luck. Dato explains that having no set class is a blank canvas, allowing Toru to master combat magic or support through pure dedication. Reminding Dato it is her turn, Toru tells her to remove her outer robe so they can measure her updated stats. Shedding her robe to reveal the tight swimsuit beneath, Dato blushes furiously and begs him to look away. A quick glance at her sheet leaves Dato gasping as her defense jumps by 200 and her level cap expands, drawing Toru closer. Reading her sheet, Toru notices she is 221, though Dato retorts that for a 1,000-year elf, she is barely in her 20s. When Toru assumes she was near her level ceiling, Dato quickly corrects him. Her growth had plateaued ages ago, but wearing the swimsuit shattered that barrier and raised her cap. Marveling at how stretchy modern fabric provides supreme defensive armor, she praises the incredible garment. Eager to test if compression shorts boost her stats further, Dato asks Toru to turn around so she can switch gear. Slipping into the new outfit, Dato inspects the shifting values in complete disbelief. Dato realizes her level cap stayed elevated even after taking off the swimsuit. When Toru Suzuki asks for clarification, Dato explains that level caps never expand on their own, meaning the gear was never the cause. A wave of shock hits Toru Suzuki as Dato points out that the true mechanics of unlimited growth remain a total mystery. Deep down, Dato suspects another trigger caused the surge. Leaning close, Dato presses her lips against Toru Suzuki. Flustered by the kiss, Toru Suzuki stammers in confusion, but Dato smiles with certainty before he points at her clothes. Right then, Dato freezes in place. Blushing furiously, Dato stammers an apology, though Toru Suzuki brushes it off and asks what changed. Breathless with excitement, Dato announces that their intimate contact pushed her level limit even higher. Her cap just jumped to 49, proving that kissing Toru Suzuki shares the power of unlimited growth. Dato notes hidden traits often demand high-level appraisal, explaining why Toru Suzuki found no skill description. Before Toru Suzuki can process his hidden powers, Dato leans in for another kiss, forcing him to plead for calm. Desperation enters Dato's voice, as she recalls decades of slaughtering beasts without growth, prompting Toru Suzuki to apologize. Reassuring him, Dato admits she would never kiss anyone she disliked, leaving Toru Suzuki genuinely touched. Teasingly, Dato pouts that Toru Suzuki only has eyes for Ria, accusing him of favoring Ria over her. Dato catches Toru Suzuki completely off guard. Flustered, Toru Suzuki confesses that he cherishes Dato just as much as Ria, catching the sorceress off guard. Embarrassment overcomes Toru Suzuki as he curses himself for sounding so indecisive and shameless. Gazing at him seriously, Dato asks what would happen if he chose Ria instead. Dato questions if he would turn to her once Ria passes in 80 years, but Toru Suzuki reminds her he will be dead by then as well. Calmly, Dato reveals that a secret method exists to extend human lifespan. Achieving such longevity requires a rare condition, instantly sparking Toru Suzuki's curiosity. Pressing Dato for answers, Toru Suzuki learns the secret lies in claiming the title of Dungeon Master. Morning arrives, finding Toru Suzuki busy clearing tables at the restaurant. A heavy sigh escapes Toru Suzuki as the weight of these impossible choices bears down on his shoulders. Memories of the previous night flood back, specifically his questions regarding the Dungeon Master. Dato had confirmed that Dungeon Master is a unique authority granting absolute control over the domain. Unlike regular skills gained from grinding, Dato explained, it must be taken directly from the current Dungeon Master on the lowest floor. Curious about the perks, Toru Suzuki had asked how acquiring the title alters one's mortal span. Dato explained that a Dungeon Master ceases aging entirely, though violent death remains an ever-present danger for Toru Suzuki. Inside Yomi Labyrinth, the reigning Dungeon Master can hand down the mantle or defend it in mortal combat against challengers. Understanding the stakes, Toru Suzuki asked how to challenge him, but Dato warned that reaching the boss requires immense power. Pressure mounts on Toru Suzuki to claim victory before monster ambushes or old age cut his journey short. Dato pointed out the harsh reality, reminding Toru Suzuki that her current level took centuries of grueling effort to attain. Refusing to despair, Toru Suzuki insisted they could bridge the gap through an unconventional method of monster culling. Intrigued by the proposal, Dato listened closely as Toru Suzuki questioned whether the plan had any fatal flaws. Dato admitted that unlike standard adventurers who fight defensively, breeding rapid-spawning monsters like livestock could work. Monitoring the herd through his laptop, Toru Suzuki plans to toggle automated kill traps at the perfect moment. Such a setup guarantees effortless leveling without ever leaving the safety of their room. Staring in disbelief, Dato praises the brilliant scheme, playfully mourning 2 centuries of wasted manual grinding. Encouraging her, Toru Suzuki suggests testing the automated trap system first, and Dato eagerly agrees. Hesitation creeps back into Toru Suzuki's voice as he admits feeling unprepared for immortality, prompting Dato to ask why. Pondering the curse of outliving everyone, Toru Suzuki listens as Dato envisions endless adventures and feasts across multiple worlds. Confidence radiates from Dato as she assures him their shared journey will be spectacular. Warmed by her optimism, Toru Suzuki agrees to embrace the vision. Unease returns as Toru Suzuki balks at letting dungeon monsters slaughter humans, but Dato promises they will find an ethical solution. Dato reassures Toru Suzuki that if ruling as Dungeon Master proves intolerable, he can simply pass the mantle to a worthy successor. Determined to reach the deepest floor, Toru Suzuki hopes to secure the title before another Dungeon Master intervenes. Back at the restaurant, Toru Suzuki chuckles at the absurdity of a broke part-timer plotting to conquer mythical domains. Trading low-wage kitchen shifts for the throne of a Dungeon Master feels like the ultimate cosmic joke to Toru Suzuki. Stepping over from the counter, Tateshi approaches Toru Suzuki. The oven timer dings, and she points out a fresh incoming ticket. With a quick apology, Toru Suzuki promises to take care of the rush, though Tateshi watches with quiet worry. Arriving home after his shift, Toru Suzuki finds Ria and Dato waiting, with Dato demanding food until he reveals takeout for dinner. Astonished by the feast, Ria listens as Toru Suzuki explains he crossed realms to bring home foreign cuisine. Unwrapping the foil package, Ria recognizes the twin bun hamburger they tasted once before. A warm smile crosses Toru Suzuki as Ria and Dato take their first bites and praise the incredible flavor. Sipping the soda, Dato praises the crisp cold cola, earning enthusiastic agreement from Ria. Over by the closet, Toru Suzuki slips a burger to Shizuku, who whispers her grateful thanks. Soft footsteps announce Dato as she walks straight into the bedroom. With a sharp gaze, Dato asks if Toru Suzuki is deliberately hiding Shizuku from Ria. Toru Suzuki explains that he rescued Ria after dungeon monsters paralyzed her and left her near death. That gruesome trauma still lingers, meaning an encounter with a monster like Shizuku might terrify Ria. Surprised that Ria was left helpless, Dato listens as Toru Suzuki recalls how the knight lost her weapon and comrades. Right. As Dato nods in grim understanding, a loud chime cuts through the apartment. Rushing in over the noise, Ria startles Dato just as Toru Suzuki slams the closet door shut. With palms raised, Toru Suzuki urges the girls to stay calm because there is no danger. Answering the intercom, he draws a deeply puzzled stare from Ria. In a hushed panic, Toru Suzuki orders them into hiding, claiming an inferno has arrived. Shocked to the core, the girls demand to know why an inferno would target their home. Before Toru Suzuki can answer, an aggressive voice through the door demands to discuss a contract. Fearing a dark magical pact, Ria asks Toru Suzuki if he can withstand this foe alone. Confidently boasting that a great sage handles any crisis, Toru Suzuki herds them into the bedroom. With quiet reassurance, Dato convinces Ria to step aside and trust Toru Suzuki. Straightening his stance in the hallway, Toru Suzuki hopes to dismiss the unwanted visitor within seconds. Outside the threshold stands an agent introducing himself as Inami from NHK. Inami pressures him to sign a broadcast agreement, making Toru Suzuki realize he left the front door unlocked, standing his ground. Toru Suzuki insists he owns no TV and gets all his entertainment online. With blatant skepticism toward the spacious room, Inami rejects the claim, but Toru Suzuki repeats that the place is bare, mouthing a fake apology. Inami pushes past Toru Suzuki, insisting a quick inspection will clear any doubt. Directly in his path, Toru Suzuki angrily asks Inami why he believes he can trespass without permission. Enhanced strength and higher levels fail Toru Suzuki as he gets shoved aside by the brute. Bursting out of the shadows, Ria confronts Inami and demands to know what he is doing to Toru Suzuki. With one devastating shove from Ria, Inami goes airborne and crashes violently across the floor. Shocked that Ria broke concealment, Toru Suzuki rushes past her to check if Inami is still breathing. In awe of Ria and her lethal combat skills, Toru Suzuki breathes a sigh of relief as Inami groans in agony. Pushing himself up, Inami brags about his 9th rank sumo training, leaving Toru Suzuki stunned by his resilience. Enraged by the resistance, Inami snarls that hiding a TV is the only reason they would fight so hard through gritted teeth. Toru Suzuki shouts that no television exists anywhere in the apartment. Flashing into view, Daito strikes Inami with a crackling burst of lightning magic. The electrical shock drops Inami flat onto the entryway floor, calming Toru Suzuki down. Daito promises the shock only stunned the man's senses without causing permanent damage. With a painful grunt against the numbness, Inami shakes his head and sits back up, astonished that he survived. Daito watches Inami shrug off the magic as static, leaving Toru Suzuki terrified by the man. Gripping Toru Suzuki by the shoulder, Inami stubbornly insists on completing his search no matter what happens. To prevent a bloody execution, Toru Suzuki surrenders and allows the agent to look around. Striding forward without hesitation, Inami inspects every room across the apartment of Toru Suzuki. Corners, cabinets, and hallways are thoroughly ransacked by Inami. Forced to admit the living room has no screen, Inami immediately locks his sights onto the sealed door. With raw panic in his voice, Toru Suzuki shouts for Inami to stop. Inami hunts through the room convinced a TV is hidden inside, unaware that Toru Suzuki only stashed his private magazines behind the door. Whispering the embarrassing truth earns a hearty laugh from Inami, who reassures Toru Suzuki that a bachelor's private collection is completely safe with him. Ushering the girls out of the room, Toru Suzuki makes sure Shizuku stays out of sight. Ria worries that Inami might be an Inferno agent aiming to steal their grimoires, but Toru Suzuki insists there is nothing to fear. Stepping out empty-handed and frustrated, Inami admits defeat, only for Toru Suzuki to remind him that he told the truth from the start. Vowing never to give up, Inami promises to return the moment Toru Suzuki buys a screen, leaving the young man dreading future visits. The door shuts behind the collector, prompting Toru Suzuki to grumble about how relentless NHK agents can be. Across the messy room, Daito sits engrossed in one of the scandalous books. Inami tossed aside during his search, snapping the cover shut. Daito glances up with a sly expression. Daito explains that she hid the rest of the stash deeper, warning that disaster would strike if Ria ever discovered them. In exchange for her silence, Daito asks to read them together in private, making Toru Suzuki suspect she wants to recreate what she saw. An unsettling thought strikes Toru Suzuki as he realizes Inami walked out through the balcony door instead of the front entrance. Horror sets in the moment he recalls exactly where that balcony doorway leads. Out on the platform, Inami sighs over failing to collect a fee, only to pause in total confusion at his strange surroundings. Pitch black darkness engulfs Inami, preventing him from seeing an inch ahead. Switching on his phone flashlight, Inami wonders why the apartment hallway vanished and if this damp tunnel is a service exit. Pushing forward, Inami pulls open a heavy iron door. Figures emerge from the shadows right before his eyes. Rushing out into the dungeon, Toru Suzuki shouts after Inami to pull him back. Undeterred, Inami asks the confused dungeon dwellers to sign a broadcast contract, but they back away from his bizarre pitch. Refusing to lose a customer, Inami marches right after them into the dark corridor. Dread grips Toru Suzuki as he realizes Inami is trailing dungeon monsters deeper underground. Toru Suzuki must give chase immediately, knowing Inami might survive mere slugs, but a giant centipede would tear him apart. Daito blocks his path and firmly refuses to let him go, pointing out that Ria lacks her sword and Toru Suzuki is too frail. Daito declares that she will handle the rescue alone. The timing is ideal, Daito explains, since staying in the apartment stirred up unresolved questions she needs to confront back home. Knowing Toru Suzuki needs gold coins for modern supplies, she promises to gather treasure and retrieve Inami safely. Seeing the distress on the face of Toru Suzuki, Daito smiles and tells him not to worry since she will return in no time. Accepting her plan, Toru Suzuki rushes to pack essential supplies for her expedition. Handing over a bag packed with rations, drinks, and cosplay outfits, Toru Suzuki earns warm gratitude from Daito. Toru Suzuki urges her to return unharmed, and Daito smiles, reminding him of their promise to live together forever, reassuring him that that Inami will return, Dato instructs Toru Suzuki to keep the doorway locked until their monitor system is functional. A confident smile graces Dato before she steps across the threshold. With a heavy metallic thud, the iron door locks shut. Ria expresses her hope for the swift return of Dato, and Toru Suzuki quietly nods in agreement. Turning her thoughts to Inami, Ria prays that no tragedy befell the stubborn collector. A full week passes with Dato underground before the chime of the doorbell catches the attention of Toru Suzuki. Busy with preparations after the Inami incident, Toru Suzuki asks for help answering the front door and keeping the dungeon portal locked. A delivery courier steps in to request a signature, which Toru Suzuki signs with grateful thanks. Breathing a sigh of relief over the package, Toru Suzuki is questioned by Ria about the contents. Toru Suzuki explains that these modern surveillance gadgets drained all the cash earned from selling their gold coins. Equipped with this gear, he can finally transform the dangerous dungeon entrance into a secured outpost. Setting up the surveillance requires mounting cameras, positioning voice recorders, and wiring all the cables together. Gesturing toward the screen, Toru Suzuki asks Ria to monitor the live feed. Staring at the glowing screen as she holds the camera, Ria gasps in amazement to see Toru Suzuki displayed live. In response to questions from Toru Suzuki, Ria explains that the tatami room feed instantly shifted to reveal his face. Confirming the camera functions flawlessly, Toru Suzuki breathes easy, knowing the basic setup works. The real obstacle is routing cables into the dungeon without drilling walls in a rental apartment or leaving the portal open. Spotting the air conditioning conduit aligned with the doorway, Toru Suzuki discovers the exact pathway he needs. Feeding the wires through that existing sleeve will snake the video feed straight into the labyrinth. Standing in the quiet room, Toru Suzuki assumes nothing dangerous is about to happen. "I will head down to the dungeon and come right back," he tells Ria, who readily nods. Searching the dungeon floor, he expects to spot the cable connecting the rooms, yet finds nothing. Disbelief hits him as he wonders if all his preparation turned out to be completely pointless. Giving up now is out of the question, and he refuses to abandon the plan so easily. Swinging the door from the inside connects to the dungeon, whereas opening it from outside leads to the apartment. The fact that Inami's voice reached him through the shut door confirms the closed entrance connects to his room. If the passage remains propped open from the inside, the connection to the dungeon should hold firm. Routing the conduit through the threshold allows the pipe to feed straight down into the labyrinth. Toru Suzuki steps back across the threshold to test his theory in the dungeon once more. Tracing the rough stone wall, he discovers the wire waiting exactly where it should be. Once the camera is hooked up to the feed, only one test remains, verifying the signal with the door closed. Rushing to his monitor, he checks the screen alongside Ria as the dungeon corridor comes into view. "We did it!" Toru Suzuki cheers, and though Ria finds the technology baffling, she smiles at their success. Surveillance units are mounted across key choke points, covering the vast entrance hall and the heavy iron door. Ria marvels that he can now monitor every corner of the dungeon without ever stepping foot outside his bedroom. Convinced this clairvoyance is high-tier sorcery, Ria praises Toru Suzuki as a truly magnificent sage. Chuckling at her awe, Toru Suzuki tells her to save her amazement for what comes next. The real dungeon renovation has only just begun, and he proudly brandishes a peculiar mechanical contraption. Examining the motorized gadget, he inspects every gear and joint before putting it to work. Ria asks if he plans to mount this apparatus down below, and he confirms it belongs beside the iron doors. Though purchased as a hobbyist toy robotic arm, the device packs enough force to push the door control switch. Wiring the mechanical hand directly into his PC allows him to operate the switch remotely with a single keystroke. Hunched over his desk, Toru Suzuki dives into writing the control script line by line. As a novice coder, scripting the arm's vertical movement took hours, causing Ria to quietly drift off to sleep. Admiring her peaceful sleeping face, he refocuses on the screen and clicks his mouse, commanding the robotic hand to open the gate. Recalling how the closing door sliced the giant centipede in half, he knows crushing a monster's skull guarantees an instant kill. Luring a creature toward the trap, Toru Suzuki spots a slime gliding into view on his monitor. One tap of the button slams the heavy iron gate shut, instantly squashing the green slug into paste. The automated trap works flawlessly on the first strike, prompting him to keep the experiment running. Flaws quickly emerge in the system, proving that his initial success was nothing more than beginner's luck. Multiple slugs crawl inside only to slip away before the door drops, forcing him to clear out the escapees manually. Stepping out into the dungeon corridor, Toru Suzuki inspects the kill zone in person. Noticing slugs clustered around the dead centipede, he realizes the rotting carcass serves as natural bait. With the carcass almost fully devoured, he needs fresh bait to draw higher tier beasts and raise his level faster. Finding an irresistible lure will draw stronger monsters straight into the automated hazard without them suspecting a thing. Heading out to the market for supplies, Toru Suzuki wears Shizuku transformed into his casual clothing. Shizuku gasps at the dazzling department store, giving him the perfect monster expert to consult on culinary tastes. Toru Suzuki Suzuki encourages her to point out anything appetizing, and she eagerly promises to assist him. Strolling down the vibrant grocery aisles, Shizuku finds all the packaged delicacies mouthwatering. Learning that beasts crave meat and savory dishes, Toru Suzuki decides to sample an assortment of Japanese foods. Baskets fill with fresh produce, assorted meats, and sweet snacks to test across every monster type. Rewarding Shizuku for coming along, Toru Suzuki offers to buy her any present she desires. Blushing with excitement, she points toward a pet collar displayed on the shelf. A necklace slime wearing a collar makes no sense to Toru Suzuki, but Shizuku insists on sporting it in human form as proof of affection. A pet slime is one thing, but picturing a human girl in a collar makes Toru Suzuki curse his stray thoughts about Ria. Steering Shizuku away from questionable manga tropes, Toru Suzuki spots the pet section and considers using commercial animal feed. Back in the dungeon, he arranges the test rations in front of the crushing iron gate. Cracking open a tin of fragrant cat food, he expects the potent aroma to draw monsters straight into the kill zone. Shizuku drools over the scent, confirming Toru Suzuki's theory that beasts will find the pet food impossible to resist. Darkness falls over the room as Toru Suzuki sits at his computer and clicks to open the dungeon door. Heavy iron grates lift to reveal a swarm of giant centipedes, massive mice, ghost mushrooms, and slugs drawn in by the cat food. Commanding the horde to stay put, he hits the switch to slam the heavy gate shut. Steel crashes down, sealing the trap as Toru Suzuki confirms the trick worked. Shizuku celebrates his rising level, prompting him to step into the dungeon to inspect the results. Gaining 2 levels in an instant after wiping out the monsters, Toru Suzuki spots a strange detail in his stats. Recalling what Dato taught him about job trees, he resolves to test this status check on Ria at the first opportunity. Since each mouse click registers as a fatal strike, grinding like this will let him one-shot giant centipedes before setting fresh bait. Back at his desk ready to grind, a glance at his phone reveals the late hour. Morning shift starts at 9, yet Toru Suzuki squeezes in one final round after a few monsters barely escape. Refusing to quit on a miss, he resets the trap for another run. Hours later on the clock, utter exhaustion catches up with him. Pulling an all-nighter paid off in massive stat gains despite the fatigue. Tateshi barks at him to hurry up and prep the salad order. Toru Suzuki grunts in frustration, knowing that tossing greens gives 0 experience points. Craving a way to grind during his shift, memories of his past gaming addictions spark an idea. Back home after work, he searches online for auto-clicker software and macro tools. MMO bots get accounts banned in games, but no administrator exists to stop automated leveling in this dungeon. Manual grinding yields cleaner results, but 2 4-hour automation will skyrocket his productivity, so he downloads the bot. Ria walks up beside Toru Suzuki to ask about the strange window on his screen. He explains how it cycles the iron gate automatically, leaving Ria in awe, since she went to sleep early and missed the initial trap. Astonishment fills Ria as she marvels at his clever setup. Praising him as a grand sage, Ria listens as Toru Suzuki insists this monster data serves research, though he knows his own power cap lies far beyond, configuring the timer to open for 2 minutes every 20 minutes. Toru Suzuki leaves the script running to harvest levels. Feeling drowsiness take over, Toru Suzuki excuses himself for a nap, letting a fascinated Ria watch over his magical monitor artifact. Giving her permission, he asks her to keep an eye on the types of monsters getting crushed. Ria nods warmly, wishing him sweet dreams. Moments later, a sharp scream from Ria shatters the silence. Leaping up in alarm, Toru Suzuki hears Ria warn that an orc in an inferno just stepped onto the screen. A familiar face strides across the display alongside the green brute. Ria frantically points out the orc walking alongside the inferno. Rubbing his eyes in disbelief, Toru Suzuki questions who this inferno could possibly be. Recognizing Inami, he gasps at why the man is half naked and munching on pet chow. Down drops the iron gate, triggering sheer panic as Toru Suzuki frantically mashes the mouse button to stop it. Bolting into the dungeon corridor, Toru Suzuki shouts to Inami, who casually greets him after so long. Inami demands a contract for the TV, but Toru Suzuki brushes off the sales pitch to warn him of the danger. Urged to look up, Inami suspects a trick to steal the delicious snacks he and the orc just discovered. Insisting the pet food is bait, Toru Suzuki points upward right as Inami spots the crushing gate rising and falling. Realizing the lethal hazard, Inami orders a retreat over the hungry orc's protests. Warning his brute partner that the food is a deadly snare, Inami heeds Toru Suzuki's alarm. Both intruders scramble away into the dark corridors. A sigh of relief escapes Toru Suzuki before the realization hits. Inami has returned to the labyrinth. Hitting the button to give chase, Toru Suzuki reaches out to Ria to breach the wall together, and she takes his hand. Her knees buckle without warning, sending her crashing to the floor. Toru Suzuki catches her shaking violently in pain. Out of nowhere, Dato steps into the room. Dato immediately questions what Toru Suzuki and Ria are doing in the passage. Answering her confusion, Toru Suzuki explains that Inami just slipped past them. Hearing the familiar Japanese name, Dato admits her slip-up and assures Toru Suzuki that she knows who he means. Dato mentions tracking guild rumors about Inami, then turns to the ailing Ria and suggests discussing it inside the room. Dato takes a long gulp of cold cola, declaring nothing beats an ice-cold soda after ages away. Inquiring about local rumors, Toru Suzuki learns from Dato that tavern patrons at the Adventurers Guild keep whispering about an odd orc peddling TV contracts. Ria explains the layout to Toru Suzuki. The Kingdom of Francisca controls the Yomi Labyrinth, though the Adventurers Guild runs it and operates several taverns inside. Recognizing the setup from his gaming days, Toru Suzuki nods, only for Ria to drop grim news. A bounty has just posted to eliminate Inami. Shocked by the word eliminate, Toru Suzuki asks if that means death, and Dato confirms it carries a low reward for an E-rank hit. An orc is still a fearsome beast, so Ria assures Toru Suzuki that no veteran hunter would risk their neck for pocket change. Dato warns that an annoyed high-level fighter could kill Inami in a single blow, prompting a worried Toru Suzuki to ask how to save him. Submitting a higher bounty to the Adventurers Guild to capture him alive is an option, and Toru Suzuki asks Dato if she can file it. A direct conversation with the quest giver could solve everything, Dato suggests, matching the goal Toru Suzuki holds to bring Inami home. Offering an apology, Toru Suzuki asks if Dato can head right back to the Adventurers Guild with him. Annoyed, Dato snaps that she just returned from there, though Toru Suzuki admits he is asking for a massive favor, refusing to abandon Inami to his fate. Toru Suzuki bows his head and begs Dato for help. Dato agrees to go if Toru Suzuki joins her, assuring him that with his recent level gains and Ria by his side, he will be safe. Ria hesitates, worried that going unarmed would make her dead weight, but Dato merely chuckles and produces a wrapped bundle. Holding up the parcel, Dato asks Ria to guess what is inside, startling Toru Suzuki when she reveals it came straight from the dungeon. The cloth falls away as Dato unveils a heavy claymore sword. Dato hands over the costly weapon as a gift, sending Ria into an instant panic as she tries to refuse it. Waving off the protest, Dato insists Ria take it, pointing out that an unarmed fighter cannot survive the dungeon anyway. Ria gives heartfelt thanks and promises to repay the debt, though Dato casually brushes the money aside. Thrilled to have a full party, Toru Suzuki announces their descent, catching Ria off guard by the abrupt timing. Clarifying that departure is set for tomorrow so Dato can rest, Toru Suzuki decides to spend the remaining time grinding his own level. Dato walks over to ask if his leveling trap is truly complete, and Toru Suzuki eagerly offers to demonstrate it. Bringing Dato before the contraption, Toru Suzuki points out the direct view into the dungeon and the bait placed before the threshold. When Dato mistakes the lure for garbage, Toru Suzuki explains it is pet food that easily attracts monsters before unlatching the iron door. A monstrous centipede crawls into view, sending Dato into combat stance to strike first, but Toru Suzuki urges her to stay calm. He slams the door shut behind him. Dato gasps at his rapid progress, but Toru Suzuki explains the system grinds even in his sleep, a trick too risky around Inami. Curious about his exact strength, Dato asks for his rank and freezes in shock the moment Toru Suzuki reveals he reached level 10. Exhaustion weighs on Toru Suzuki after pulling an all-nighter to grind, having spent the entire daylight shift working his part-time job. Tears stream down her face as Dato protests that gaining power this easily is completely unfair. Reaching level 10 cost her years of Mortal Kombat against deadly beasts, yet Toru Suzuki simply invites Dato to try it herself. Confused by the setup, Dato listens as Toru Suzuki guides her hand over the mouse to position the cursor and click the target. Her mood brightens as Dato finds the strange computer interface surprisingly fun. Celebrating her first victory at the screen, Dato cheers just before Toru Suzuki calls out to Ria. Inquiring what is wrong, Toru Suzuki hears Ria explain that she must practice the sword strike learned in the dungeon after so long away. Approving of the training session, Toru Suzuki asks if he can stand by and watch her practice. Bowing apologetically, Ria asks to train in solitude so she can focus completely, begging forgiveness for her selfishness. Toru Suzuki reassures her with a nod, then instructs Dato to stop clicking for now, and she promptly obeys. Giving instructions before leaving, Toru Suzuki promises to return in an hour, reminding Dato to stay out of the room until then. Stepping outside, Toru Suzuki approaches Shizuku to ask for a crucial favor, prompting her curious inquiry. To copy her sword skills, Toru Suzuki asks Shizuku to monitor Ria on camera and memorize every movement. Accepting the task without hesitation, Shizuku promises to perform the duty to the best of her ability. Announcing his trip to buy dinner, Toru Suzuki asks them to guard the house, and the girls cheerfully see him off. Returning home with premium beef, Toru Suzuki announces his arrival, eager to celebrate the return of Dato with hot sukiyaki. Panic grips both Dato and Shizuku the moment he walks in, warning him that an urgent disaster just occurred. Alarmed by their frantic state, Toru Suzuki demands to know what went wrong. Their grim report reveals that Ria collapsed unconscious inside the dungeon depths. In a memory from the past, a young noble praises Ria for serving House of Kaja, though Ria claims she is unworthy of such honor, insisting there is no need for modesty. The noble explains she is no longer the mistress of Ria. Speechless in the face of such affection, Ria stands quietly as the young woman pulls her into a warm embrace. We grew up together as sisters, Monica reminds her, leaving Ria stunned by the bond they shared. Smiling softly, Monica asks Ria not to mourn her departure, pleading for one last warm farewell instead. Offering a family blade, Monica insists it barely repays the eternal loyalty of House Eldrax. Drifting back to reality, Ria slowly opens her eyes. Pushing through her exhaustion, she sits up from the bed. Staring down in silence, she inspects her trembling hands. Across the room, Dato reassures Toru that the crisis has passed. Her pulse and breathing remain steady without physical wounds, letting Toru breathe a sigh of relief. When Toru asks what happened, Shizuku explains that Ria froze with her weapon drawn and collapsed without warning. Dato steps in, suspecting deep-seated psychological trauma. Hearing this, Toru wonders if sheer terror of the dungeon broke her spirit. Though Toru assumed she was ready, Dato reveals Ria only ventured out alone to battle her inner demons. Toru suggests resting until she recovers, but Dato stuns him with a grim warning: such wounds may never heal. Demanding the truth, Toru asks what could possibly cause such lasting agony. Dato mentions that guild rumors went beyond Inami, hinting at a darker scandal tied directly to Ria. Before Dato can explain her hesitation, Ria enters the room, offering to tell the story herself. The entire room falls silent at her unexpected entrance. Toru asks if she is fit to stand. Ria brushes off her fatigue and prepares to speak, ignoring Dato's gentle warning. Standing firm, Ria insists that both Toru and Dato hear the truth from her own lips. Gathering around the table, Ria explains that understanding her pain requires knowing why she chose this life. She was born into House Eldrax, a lineage of military nobles pledged to House of Kaja for generations. Tasked with leading their lord's knights, Ria became head of House Eldrax when no male heir was born. Crippling droughts soon devastated the lands of House of Kaja, where a curious curse produced only daughters. House Eldrax tolerated a female head, but the grand nobility forbade a woman ruler, fracturing House of Kaja. Monica, the sole remaining daughter of House of Kaja, was wed off to a duke, ending her family's rule. Turning 16 on the eve of her wedding, Monica bestowed her sacred ancestral blade upon Ria. Bereft of the lady she served, Ria refused to abandon her sworn devotion to House of Kaja. Searching her heart for a new purpose, she made a fateful choice. To feed the destitute orphans left across House of Kaja, she resolved to conquer dungeons as an adventurer. Armed with Monica's heirloom, she took up the sword to protect the last remnants of House of Kaja. Dato marvels at her shift from knight to mercenary, and Toru silently admires her battle-honed dedication. With the guild crawling with rogues, Dato explains that a striking knight drew immediate attention. Ria counters that Dato was equally famous, a solitary mage daring to clear labyrinths without a party. Dato claims her prowess was always enough, but Toru dryly reminds her she was near death when they met. Toru asks why Monica's precious sword was missing when she collapsed, prompting Ria to recount the darkest chapter. Flashing back to her early days before meeting Toru, grateful rookies thank Ria for saving their lives. Parting ways with them in the Adventurers Guild, Ria spots Dato and slams both hands onto her table. Offering an eager greeting, Ria asks to form a party, drawing an exasperated sigh from Dato. Ria presses her case, arguing that raiding together guarantees far greater safety and efficiency. Annoyed by the lecture, Dato complains about standard guild protocol, but Ria insists this is purely practical. Official guild doctrine mandates group expeditions to keep rookie mortality rates from spiking. In truth, Ria's desperation stems from the orphan children who rely on her dungeon earnings to survive. Clearing the first floor barely yields scrap, and novice parties consistently break on floor 2. Desperate to reach the lucrative 4th and 5th floors, Ria urges Dato to put down her drink and join forces. Dato snaps that she works alone, just as two exhausted men sit nearby, lamenting their failure on floor 3. The blonde urges a push toward floor 4, knowing the bounty there will change their fortunes forever. Noting their missing third member for a balanced squad, Ria curiously questions Dato about the pair. Dato reveals that Klein and Barney are inseparable runaways who fled across the border. Marked as deserters and criminals in their homeland, Dato refuses to ever consider them allies. Undeterred by the danger, Ria steps toward them to negotiate, leaving Dato stunned by her recklessness. Stepping toward the pair, Ria asks to join their squad, catching the dark-haired Klein completely off guard. Barney snaps at Klein to shut his mouth, but Ria laughs it off, having heard that same reaction countless times. Pressing for answers, Barney questions her motives, prompting Klein to hush him before Ria asks why they became adventurers. Shushing Klein, Barney asks why that matters, leaving both men stunned when Ria invites them to join her party. Klein warns her that teaming up is madness, since returning to their homeland would brand them as wanted criminals. Sinking back into his seat, Klein insists that their fugitive status makes joining forces completely impossible. Ria asks if if Klein regrets deserting, arguing that fleeing a hopeless battle should never carry a death sentence. Barney scoffs at the hesitation, convincing Klein that only an idiot would refuse an invite from a gorgeous woman. Honored by their acceptance, Rhea welcomes them aboard, unaware that Dato watches the exchange with sharp suspicion. Venturing into the dungeon in high spirits, Klein proves his combat skill with powerful seasoned sword strikes. Acting as magical backup, Barney claims to focus on support, yet his offensive spells unleash heavy destruction. Holding the vanguard, Rhea deflects incoming blows, letting Klein slash forward and Barney blast foes with magic. Celebrating at the tavern later, Klein marvels over their massive success and the rare artifact they uncovered. Barney credits Rhea for drawing good fortune to their trio, though Rhea laughs and urges the boys not to flatter her. Shielded by Rhea like an unbreakable wall, Klein admits he hesitated against rats before Barney blasted them away. Proud of his contribution, Barney praises their synergy and Rhea warmly agrees that both men make great partners. Wondering if she spoke out of turn, Rhea asks if something is wrong, but Klein eagerly proposes hitting the 5th floor. Rhea warns that the lower depths are dangerous, but Klein tempts her with the promise of far greater dungeon bounties. Swayed by the promise of coin, Rhea agrees to the plan, suggesting they recruit a 4th adventurer to stay safe. Klein snaps at Rhea, asking who would ever join disgraced deserters before Barney steps in and makes him apologize. Urging Klein to take a chance, Rhea agrees to descend, but only under the strict condition of an immediate retreat. Barney promises to drag them out if things turn sour, but deep inside the 5th floor, the sword used by Klein snaps. Furious over his cheap weapon, Klein curses the massive goblin swarm guarding the 5th floor entrance. Pointing out that goblin nests belong deeper down, Klein panics as Barney orders him to stop whining and take action. A goblin lunges at Klein, but Rhea intercepts the blow with her shield, siding with Barney and urging Klein to stay calm. Barney unleashes freezing gale shards to pin the monster down, giving Rhea the chance to toss her own sword to Klein. Slashing down the final goblin, Klein defends his broken blade to Barney, noting how heavily armed these monsters were. Rhea insists on retreating immediately, granting Klein permission to hold her blade until they reach the surface. Counting on Klein for protection, Rhea reveals that the extraordinary sharpness comes from pure forged mithril. Stunned by the rare mithril craftsmanship, Klein listens as Rhea explains that Monica gave her the treasured heirloom. Klein promises to treat the heirloom with great care, unaware that an injured goblin stirs in the shadows behind them. Raising a blowpipe, the monster fires a dart at the men, but Rhea shoves Klein aside and takes the hit to her own leg. Klein executes the lurking fiend and checks on Rhea, who grimaces as a paralyzing neurotoxin spreads through her veins. Desperate for a cure, Klein begs Barney to cast purification, but Barney admits the venom surpasses his magic. Turning on his teammate, Klein demands that Barney keep casting spells, but Barney refuses to waste his mana. Klein argues that abandoning Rhea is unthinkable, but Barney coldly insists they leave her behind to save themselves. Dragging dead weight on the 5th floor guarantees their doom. Barney insists, leaving Klein completely helpless. Rhea urges Klein to listen to Barney, reminding him of the grim rule to abandon fallen allies and flee before danger returns. Following guild survival protocols about preserving vital gear, Barney coldly strips the supply bag away from Rhea. Barney offers a cold farewell, prompting Klein to mutter an awkward promise to see Rhea again before fleeing. Dragging herself upright, Rhea refuses to wait for death, desperately searching for any crevice to hide from beasts. In a narrow alcove down the hall, Rhea seeks shelter, heartbroken that Barney refused to even stand guard. Her anger shifts toward Klein, devastated that he stole the precious sword, knowing how much history it carried. Stranded in the dark with no hope of rescue, Rhea whispers an apology to Monica, broken in both body and spirit. Toru Suzuki knows the rest of the grim story. Stripped of food and steel, Rhea lay paralyzed in total darkness. Weeping in terror as death approached, she was saved by Toru Suzuki, whose warmth pulled her back from the brink. Trauma left Rhea terrified of dungeons, and Dato reveals rumors that Klein claimed the blade under Adventurers Guild rules. Receiving only vague fragments at the front desk, Rhea admits to Dato that she still blames herself for the ordeal. Paralyzed by fear in that dark corridor, Rhea confesses that bitter resentment made her wish doom upon her deserters. Dato comforts her, promising to punish Klein for his betrayal and recover the sword that rightfully belongs to Rhea. Rhea warns Dato against crossing that line, since the Adventurers Guild enforces the laws of the Kingdom of Francisca, branding any rogue a criminal. Forgiveness is out of the question for Dato, who turns to Toru Suzuki to demand his stance before Rhea urges him to speak up. Trembling with pure rage, Toru Suzuki locks his gaze onto Dato and vows ruthless vengeance, making it clear to both girls that he has snapped. Reminding him about the strict laws of the guild, Rhea hears Toru Suzuki counter that she cannot forgive them either before asking for her choice. Dato scoffs at the reminder, prompting Toru Suzuki to promise their enemies the exact horror Rhea endured, and she eagerly offers her aid. Right on cue, Shizuku surfaces to ask if she can join in, startling Rhea with her white slime form before Toru Suzuki puts her straight to work. They will reclaim the stolen blade from the cowards who made Ria weep, and Toru Suzuki immediately lays out their plan of attack. Deeper in the dungeon, Dato battles alongside Barney and Klein, unleashing devastating inferno magic against the monsters. Barney marveled at Dato, praising her veteran skill, and Klein eagerly agreed that she was an incredible asset to the team. Flashing a sleazy grin, Klein compliments the beauty of Dato and insists she become a permanent member of their party. Dato laughs off the offer with a promise to consider it, disgusted beneath her smile that they can flatter her after ditching a comrade. Their demeanor clashes with the warnings from Ria. Klein acts uncomfortably pushy, yet Barney observes everyone with cold calculation, realizing Ria was too kind-hearted to see through them. Dato watches Klein shift his focus to the artifact around her neck. Touching her moonstone necklace, Dato confirms that it radiates bright light without any torch, calling it her most prized possession. Barney probes about its market price, but Dato downplays the cost and remarks that the sword carried by Klein holds far greater value. Klein puffs up his chest, boasting with arrogant pride that the weapon in his grasp is forged from pure mithril. Aware that the blade belongs to someone else, Dato reins in her anger to avoid wrecking the ambush plan by Toru Suzuki. Toru Suzuki had instructed Dato to lure Klein and Barney straight toward the iron door, a task made easy by their greed for the 5th floor. Barney calls a sharp halt to their march, raising questions from Klein, though Dato considers Klein a reckless fool and Barney a real threat. Admitting his suspicion, Barney doubts an elite adventurer like Dato would ever team up with them, but she smoothly brushes it off. Setting the trap for Toru Suzuki required Dato to visit the surface first and pin a recruitment notice on the board of the Adventurers Guild. Both Barney and Klein had approached Dato, claiming they caught her notice seeking a temporary party for quick cash. Questioning why the solo veteran Dato needed help, Barney hears her excuse about expenses and steers back to the payout. Barney brought up a funeral service on the 5th floor, adventurer slang for looting the gear off corpses left behind in the dungeon. Grave robbing typically yields worthless scraps, so Dato questioned why anyone would bother running a funeral service for no profit. Stripping strangers is one thing, yet Barney saw a massive windfall in staging a funeral service for their own abandoned party member. Dato listened as they pitched a 3-way split on high-grade knight armor and a shield, well aware that scavengers thrive on such taboos. Having already stolen a pure mithril sword, the two rogue adventurers had clearly developed an insatiable greed for each illicit funeral service. Desperate to reach the 5th floor with their shady reputation and the stolen sword of Ria, the pair had no choice except to recruit Dato. When Dato inquires about the fallen knight, Klein identifies her as Ria and jokes that she would be jealous of such a gorgeous recruit. Brushing off the flattery from Klein, Dato listens as Barney points out the zone where Ria fell so they can hunt down the abandoned armor. Leaving the rest to Toru Suzuki, Dato calls out to point at a motionless body, freezing both men in shock as they spot Ria on the floor. Gesturing to the blonde figure collapsed on the stones, Dato asks if that is Ria, sending both men into complete disbelief. The trick works perfectly on them, since Dato knows a corpse left without food or water for a week should show heavy decay. Dato smirks and asks if Ria survived, pressing the panicked men on whether they used her and then left her behind, rattling Barney. Laughing it off as a joke, Dato insists Ria is only a corpse and urges them forward to finish stripping the gear. Stepping closer to Ria, Barney tries to confirm if she has perished, and Klein notes that her skin still retains a lifelike color. With Dato urging them to seize the lucrative armor and shield, Klein reaches down to the fallen girl with a muttered apology. Ria instantly locks her grip onto his wrist, calling out to Klein and Barney, thanking them for coming back to save her life. Klein claims he only came to rescue Ria, yet Dato exposes his lie by reminding everyone they came to loot and sell her gear. Barney offers a private payoff to silence Dato, who demands at least 1,000 coins to keep her mouth shut. Horrified by the confession, Ria asks what Barney means, refusing to believe her trusted comrades came only to rob her grave. Barney hastily claims Dato is talking nonsense, and Ria breathes a sigh of relief, trusting in their supposed bond of friendship. Turning to Klein, Ria recognizes her precious sword in his hand and politely asks him to hand it back. Stepping in, Barney claims the Adventurers Guild grants the weapon to Klein, refusing to return it even if Ria survived. Ria drops her expression into a chilling scowl as Toru Suzuki hits a switch, lowering the heavy iron gate and terrifying Barney and Klein. Shouting to flee the closing room, Barney panics as Ria clamps down on their legs, ignoring their frantic demands to let go. Bursting into unhinged laughter, Ria reveals a hideously scarred face and demands the return of her treasured keepsake. Screaming in sheer terror, Klein begs for mercy and promises to return the sword if only Ria agrees to release them. Their screams cut short as both men collapse unconscious, allowing Toru Suzuki to step forward and praise the girls for a job well done. Dato fumes with rage toward all men, though Shizuku insists even slimes have standards, leaving Toru stunned that Klein and Barney actually wet themselves. Snapping a quick photo of the cowards, Toru asks Dato to pause before having her pen a warning note, which which she gladly writes, leaving the blade behind to head back inside. They watch the camera feed together as Dato notices Klein and Barney spot the message. The note warns that returning means endless torment until their final breath, and terrified by Toru's message, the pair flees in panic. Hoping they never cross paths with those scoundrels again, Toru heads over to the chamber where Ria is waiting. Ria asks if everything is settled, and with a gentle nod, Toru hands the recovered sword right back into her hands. Gripping the hilt with trembling hands, Ria clutches the precious blade Monica gave her and breaks down into tears. When Ria asks what he would do if she became immobilized, Toru promises he would carry her out or die fighting alongside her. A warm smile graces Ria's face as she steps closer to him, confessing she knew he would give that exact answer. Stepping forward, Toru confesses the truth to Ria, apologizing sincerely for falsely claiming the title of Great Sage. Ria reveals she already suspected as much, yet treasured every moment with Toru and embraced his boundless kindness. Insisting, she owes him the apology instead. She listens as Toru reassures her that he simply desires to stay by her side, though Ria wonders who he truly is, and Toru struggles to explain. She affirms that his past identity changes nothing. Dropping to one knee in a formal bow, Ria swears her sacred oath to serve as Toru's loyal knight until her dying breath. Flustered by the abrupt pledge, Toru hesitates, prompting Ria to counter with an immediate proposal for marriage. Whether as his stalwart knight or his devoted wife, she demands a bond with Toru, openly favoring the altar. When Toru suggests relying on her as a trusted knight for their travels, Ria pouts at the dodge, dedicating her sword entirely to Toru. Ria acknowledges he is free to pursue Dato or Shizuku if he prefers. Even so, she promises to await the day he finally accepts her as his bride with pure joy. Practicing deep inside the dungeon, Ria unleashes a fluid combo attack and confirms her blade work remains razor sharp. Catching her breath, she hears Toru call out from the open doorway to praise her flawless form. Turning toward Toru, Ria explains that training with her reclaimed mithril sword each day restores her combat rhythm. Her trauma clearly conquered, Ria radiates cheer as Toru announces that a hot meal awaits them, humming a light tune. Dato asks what is on the menu, and Toru reveals he prepared savory sukiyaki. Toru whipped up the feast to make up for skipped meals, earning mouth-watering praise from Shizuku and Ria, inviting everyone to dig in. Toru watches them savor the sweet, tender meat and aromatic broth with pure delight, highlighting the prime beef cut. Toru suggests pairing it with rice before playfully spoon-feeding Shizuku. Calculating a 2-day trek to reach the surface, Ria asks what provisions they should pack for the expedition. Dato volunteers herself and Ria to handle monster threats, leaving Toru in charge of culinary supplies, to which he agrees. Warning against heavy rations, Dato receives Toru's reassurance that his portable meals will surpass all expectations. Stepping into the dungeon corridor, Toru locks the doorway with his key and declares the journey to the surface underway. Bewildered, Ria asks why he is fiddling with a solid wall, to which Toru explains he is locking his front entrance. Dato points out that locals only perceive bare rock, questioning the necessity of locking an invisible apartment door. An intruder slipping inside could trigger catastrophe, making caution the smarter strategy regardless. Snatching the key to tuck it somewhere cheeky, Dato laughs off Toru's protests and guarantees its absolute safety. Reclaiming the key, Toru entrusts it to Ria instead, leaving Dato stunned as Ria eagerly accepts the duty. Gasping in surprise, Ria announces that the door is now visible to her, shocking Toru and a skeptical Dato. Blind to the sight, Shizuku presses Ria, who firmly insists she sees the portal leading straight to Toru's room. Intrigued by this revelation, Toru passes the key to Dato, who instantly beholds the hidden doorway herself. Toru urges Ria to test if holding the key grants access, and she steps up to attempt the unlock. Guiding the key into the lock with Toru's confirmation, Ria turns it and swings the apartment door wide open. Confirming that holding the key allows natives to perceive and operate the portal, Toru invites the girls inside. Staring through the window at Japan, Ria and Dato recognize the cityscape of Toru's world with wide-eyed awe. Prompted by Toru, Dato hands the key over to Shizuku, who marvels at the clear view of the outside street. Amazed by the key's hidden power, Toru makes Ria promise never to misplace such a critical item. Urging everyone to regain focus, he reminds the group that their main mission to reach the surface still awaits. Dato interrupts to demand a personal key of her own, catching Toru completely off guard. Explaining that Ria holds it purely for safekeeping, Toru pleads with Dato to let the matter rest. Ria beams with sheer joy when Toru confirms she may keep hers, sparking an outraged protest from Dato. Accused of blatant favoritism, Toru promises to visit a locksmith on Earth to craft duplicate keys for everyone. Dato asks where the locksmith is so they can head straight over. Shizuku urges Toru Suzuki to hurry, leaving no time to waste. At the locksmith shop, Toru Suzuki requests 2 duplicate keys. The craftsman promises both copies by 8:30, and Toru Suzuki thanks him. Stepping outside, Toru Suzuki calls to Dato and Ria, only to find a curious crowd gathering around their borrowed modern clothes. Ria and Dato Dato turn heads with their striking foreign beauty, yet the onlookers keep a respectful distance, simply watching in awe. None of the locals realize they stand before an otherworldly knight and sorceress as Toru Suzuki takes their hands to lead them away. With time to spare before the keys finish, Ria admits she wants to explore more of the modern world belonging to Toru Suzuki. Dato mentions only seeing the city at night and wants a proper tour, prompting Shizuku to chime in with equal excitement. Since their departure is set for tomorrow, Toru Suzuki happily offers to guide them on a walk through the city. Towering skyscrapers blot out the sky, metal carriages rush faster than warhorses, and endless crowds fill the streets. Dato eagerly promises to recommend tasty local treats to Ria, though Toru Suzuki worries his only idea is pancakes. Ria points out her lack of local currency, but Dato reassures her that Toru Suzuki will gladly cover every expense. Toru Suzuki tells them not to worry and buys a fresh batch of pancakes, which Ria savors with absolute delight. Dato playfully points out cream on Ria before they pick up fish-shaped taiyaki, quickly spotting crowds in stylish outfits. Admiring how fashionable everyone dresses, Ria and Dato turn to Toru Suzuki with a request to try on modern garments. Entering a boutique, both companions step into the fitting room and emerge in new outfits to ask Toru Suzuki for his opinion. Stunned by their beauty, Toru Suzuki offers high praise, prompting Ria and Dato to try on even more outfits. Each look showcases a distinct style, contrasting the bold outfits chosen by Dato with the graceful elegance worn by Ria. The fashion show becomes a visual feast for Toru Suzuki, though Dato hesitates when Ria hands her a daring piece to try. Ria insists the outfit will suit her partner flawlessly, persuading Dato to strip down and slip into the delicate fabric. Dato steps out in sheer lingerie, asking Toru Suzuki for his reaction before he blushes and assures her she looks fantastic. Ria compliments the cute look and encourages Dato to sample more designs until they finally purchase a full wardrobe. Seeing their joy makes every yen worthwhile to Toru Suzuki, especially with fantasy gold coins awaiting him back in the dungeon. Strolling through the bustling metropolis, the companions marvel at how peaceful and technologically advanced Japan remains. When Ria asks if warfare plagues this land, Toru Suzuki explains that peace has endured here for over 70 years. Dato notes that despite such advanced civilization, she sees no elves or demi-humans walking among the human citizens. Toru Suzuki clarifies that elves and demi-humans do not exist on Earth, leaving both heroines stunned by the revelation. Dato wonders if humanity wiped out other races in ancient wars, but Toru Suzuki confirms no such conflicts ever occurred. Though myths of demons and giants exist in folklore, Toru Suzuki dismisses them as fiction, and Dato accepts his word. Dato and Ria apologize for their selfish key requests, acknowledging the burden placed on the private home of Toru Suzuki. Reassuring them with a smile, Toru Suzuki insists he wants them to visit freely so he can introduce them to more of Japan. After the companions express their gratitude, Toru Suzuki suggests collecting the duplicate keys and returning to the fantasy world. Keys in hand, the party unlocks the gateway, preparing to ascend from the underground dungeon toward the fantasy surface. Materializing on the 5th floor of the Yomi Labyrinth, Toru Suzuki flinches at the sight of monstrous beasts lurking ahead. Ria and Dato spring directly in front of Toru Suzuki, drawing their weapons and charging into combat without hesitation. Dato grins and tells him to relax, but Toru Suzuki defends his nerves since modern Japan never had flesh-eating beasts. Giant rats pose no threat to his current strength. Dato assures him, leading Toru Suzuki to cautiously agree. Having reached level 10, Toru Suzuki activates his character evaluation skill to inspect the hidden combat stats of his allies. Targeting Dato and Ria with the evaluation skill, Toru Suzuki gasps upon discovering just how remarkably high their levels reach. When Toru Suzuki notices partial stats obscured, Dato explains that leveling up his appraisal skill will reveal complete data. Dato previously had a level cap of 47, but intimacy with Toru Suzuki raised her ceiling, letting her grind extra experience. Comparing their growth, Toru Suzuki observes that Ria possesses a lower current level than Dato, yet holds a superior maximum cap. Toru Suzuki asks Ria if her level limit expanded lately, and she confirms the unexpected increase, asking if he knows the cause. Before Toru Suzuki can explain, Dato steps between them to interrogate whether he shared an intimate night with Ria as well. Marching forward in formation, Ria leads the vanguard. Dato anchors the center, and Toru Suzuki covers the rear beside Shizuku. Reaching the 4th floor, Toru Suzuki doubts the route Dato calls fast, skeptical after 4 hours of non-stop monster skirmishes. Ria recalls wandering half a day before Venom felled her, and Dato confirms frequent surface trips made her accustomed to the pace, suggesting a lunch break. Toru Suzuki learns from Dato that a restorative fountain lies just an hour further down the corridor. Navigating past dungeon obstacles, the group enters a spacious cavern where Toru Suzuki notes the clear path free of tangled roots. Dato gestures ahead to announce their arrival, revealing the sparkling waters of the underground fountain to Toru Suzuki. Across the chamber, Toru Suzuki spots a group of otherworldly adventurers, their formidable strength quickly confirmed by Shizuku. Since Shizuku is a rare white slime, Toru Suzuki suggests keeping her hidden, but Dato insists the Adventurers Guild forbids parties from fighting each other. Dato sizes up the nearby party as weaklings, urging a curious Toru Suzuki to check their stats himself without peering at the red-haired boy. At his question, Dato warns that the red-haired thief has detection skills and would spot his appraisal, pointing Toru Suzuki toward the scarred swordsman instead. Level 12 sits on the scarred warrior, merely 2 above Toru Suzuki, which Dato dismisses as mediocre progress after 3 whole years. Hunting monsters below level 10 spells suicide for normal adventurers, making a solo centipede kill unheard of, yet Toru Suzuki did it from his bedroom with a button. Impressed by her seasoned eye, Toru Suzuki praises Dato for gauging their entire party's battle strength in a single glance. To pull his weight outside of battle, Toru Suzuki prepares a meal from his supplies, earning eager smiles from Ria and Dato. With a fresh fountain nearby for clean water, Toru Suzuki pulls out packages of instant noodles to cook lunch. Toru Suzuki boils a pot of water, stirring in noodles, seasoning powder, and dried vegetables until the soup steeps to perfection, stunned by how fast it cooks. Dato marvels at the pot just as Ria catches the rich fragrance and asks what the dish is. Presenting it as top-tier miso ramen, Toru Suzuki delights Ria, who already loves every bowl of miso soup he brews. After serving bowls to Ria and Dato, Toru Suzuki receives their thanks and blows on his steaming noodles before taking a bite. Both Ria and Dato copy his slurping technique and instantly gasp together at how delicious the noodles taste. Savoring the deep broth, Ria cannot fathom how such rich flavor developed so quickly, winning Dato's wholehearted agreement. Across the clearing, Dato spots the other adventurers staring their way, making Toru Suzuki worry their loud slurping drew attention. When Toru Suzuki asks about normal dungeon rations, Dato describes dry jerky, salted fish, and stale bread soaked in water, appalling him. Setting down another pot and extra ramen packs, Toru Suzuki prompts Ria to ask if he still wants a second helping. Determined to share hot food with the starving adventurers, Toru Suzuki thanks Ria for volunteering to help, despite Dato's objections, pouring noodles into cups. Toru Suzuki advises Dato she can stay behind to watch Shizuku if she prefers not to get involved. Over at the neighboring camp, Toru Suzuki greets the startled scarred man, explaining they accidentally brewed extra soup to share. The scarred leader asks for the price in disbelief, but Toru Suzuki hands over the steaming cups without asking for a single coin. Amid tense glances from his crew, the scarred warrior bluntly asks Toru Suzuki if the unknown concoction is laced with poison, pointing out his strange relics, alien food, and monster-like Japanese speech. The veteran demands answers from a sheepish Toru Suzuki. Though Toru Suzuki cites their shared adventurers' guild bond, the warrior counters that the guild never learns what happens to dead men. Speaking of the deceased, the men recognize Ria as the omnipresent knight Ria, and she calmly confirms her identity. The scarred veteran recalls how Ria once saved him, confessing he heard she perished, revealing to Toru Suzuki that the surface world mourns her. Between monster words, unknown relics, alien food, and Ria back from the dead, Toru Suzuki concedes that their party invites heavy suspicion. If they fear betrayal, Toru Suzuki advises them to toss the bowls onto the ground, turning his back to walk away. The scarred leader halts Toru Suzuki, admitting the irresistible smell broke his resolve, and he will happily risk death for a taste. Taking his first gulp, the warrior breaks into a wide grin, assuring an astonished Toru Suzuki that the soup tastes spectacular. Reassured by their captain's delight, the rest of the squad dives into their cups and gasps at the delicious broth. The red-haired thief yells at his companions not to drink every drop, momentarily confusing Toru Suzuki. Dipping rock-hard rations into the hot broth, the red-haired adventurer demonstrates how the soup transforms stale bread into a feast. After bidding the crew goodbye, Toru Suzuki returns to his companions as Dato admits her amazement that the strangers actually ate. Unsure how to take Dato's teasing, Toru Suzuki shows Ria the rare bouquet given to him in gratitude. Dato inspects the blossom and gasps at the rare ancient tree flower, prompting Toru Suzuki to ask why they handed over so many. As a vital reagent for medium potions, Dato explains that secret gathering grounds for these flowers fetch fortunes among top adventurers. The gift carries an unspoken tip for Toru Suzuki. A grove of ancient trees blooms right here on this floor for him to harvest. Thrilled by the wonderful reward, Ria and Shizuku celebrate the gift, and Dato playfully demands another feast next time. Toru Suzuki smiles at the delicate flower in his hand, gladly promising to cook another feast for his companions. Upon reaching the third floor of the Yomi Labyrinth, Toru Suzuki gazes in awe at a massive castle, drawing an amused nod from Dato. Decades ago, the discovery of this gold-filled castle ignited a frenzy that drew countless adventurers in a massive gold rush. Armed skeletons emerge to confront Toru Suzuki, but Ria charges ahead and cleaves through their brittle bones with ease. Hearing his alarm alarm, Dato asks Toru Suzuki how unarmed skeletons with zero muscle could possibly pose a threat. In her eyes, these brittle monsters offer perfect combat practice, making Toru Suzuki question if he can manage alone. Because relying solely on remote clicks stunts his battle instincts, Dato pushes Toru Suzuki to fight, and Ria lends him her heavy shield. Staggering under the heavy metal, Toru Suzuki marvels at Ria's strength, prompting her to tease him about powerful women. Dato urges them to cut the banter, so Toru Suzuki wades into melee, cutting down fragile skeletons that overwhelm through sheer numbers. Exhausted from the brutal grind, Toru Suzuki stumbles, but Ria catches him in her arms and asks if he can stand. With a gentle smile, Ria reassures the weary group that their campsite is close, asking them to endure just a little longer. Reaching their destination at last, a guide directs Toru Suzuki and the group to an open spot on the lower level, earning Dato's gratitude. Inside the reinforced cells, Ria points out that monsters cannot attack them here, and Dato adds that guild-hired guards patrol the area. Exhaustion hits Toru Suzuki the moment they step into the room, prompting Ria to call an early night so he can recover his strength. A quick bowl of oatmeal sends them off to sleep, waking up refreshed at sunrise to finish breakfast before moving out. Climbing the stone staircase, the party ascends straight onto the second floor of the Yomi Labyrinth. Toru Suzuki marvels at the lush forest, shocked that such bright greenery can flourish deep underground beneath an ancient castle. Glowing moss illuminates the ancient canopy, prompting Dato to explain the flora as Toru Suzuki realizes they need no torches. Midday lunch brings a stern warning from Dato, urging Toru Suzuki and Shizuku to stay alert as they approach the first floor. Dato explains that the first floor shelters outcasts and criminals from the surface, turning the whole level into a violent battleground for turf. Ruthless factions dominate these underground slums, constantly waging war over power, extortion, and district control. The Thieves Guild runs petty pickpocketing, the Merchants Guild moves black market contraband, and the Rising Mercenaries Guild handles bloody muscle work. Sensing the danger, Toru Suzuki listens closely as Dato singles out the Mercenaries Guild as their primary threat. When Toru Suzuki asks if pickpockets pose a risk, Ria admits the Thieves Guild brings plenty of trouble on its own. According to Dato, the Thieves Guild preys strictly on wealthy nobles, noting that the House of Kaja houses the slickest thieves around. Ria points out that the House of Kaja constantly shelters runaway orphans, making minor theft unavoidable for their survival. Though Ria trusts the shelter, Dato notes they turn away most applicants, prompting Toru Suzuki to ask about the Merchants Guild. Supplies like weapons and rations tempt Dato, yet she cautions that the syndicate deals in forbidden black market trades. Deeming them a necessary evil, Dato faces immediate teasing from Ria about tavern rumors of her frequenting their underground gambling dens. Inquiring about the Mercenaries Guild, Toru Suzuki learns from Dato that they run a brutal extortion racket, harassing rookies under the guise of escorts. Once outside the safe zones, these thugs strip rookies of all loot and violently blockade the main paths leading down. Comparing them to the Yakuza, Toru Suzuki listens as Dato warns that lone dissenters get crushed, making complete evasion their best strategy. Unease gnaws at Toru Suzuki as they near the top, a sentiment Shizuku shares without hesitation, warning him about local scrutiny. Dato notes Shizuku stands out as a rare white slime, leading Toru Suzuki to suggest transforming her into gear. Ria cautions that suspicious appraisers might inspect Toru Suzuki and uncover Shizuku hidden in plain sight. Toru Suzuki asks Shizuku to replicate the gear worn by fourth-floor locals to help him blend seamlessly into the crowd. Transforming on command, Shizuku reshapes into sturdy adventurer armor, praising how sharp Toru Suzuki looks in his disguise. Both Ria and Dato praise his rugged warrior appearance, though Toru Suzuki realizes carrying a pickaxe instead of a sword ruins the cover. Dato promises to buy him a proper iron blade the moment they arrive, sending the group onward with renewed confidence. Stepping onto the first floor of the Yomi Labyrinth, Toru Suzuki finds the bustling district surprisingly calmer than the gruesome rumors suggested. Ria clarifies that this sector, Hona, sits squarely under Merchants Guild control, making it the safest haven in the Undercity. Seductive voices call out to Toru Suzuki, where a cluster of glamorous elven hostesses beckon him to come play. Shizuku alerts Toru Suzuki to the icy glares from Ria and Dato, before Dato snaps that common street elves share nothing with a high elf. Demanding not to be compared to such shameless hustlers, Dato leads the squad deeper into the bustling district, spotting the market stalls. Toru Suzuki asks Dato to purchase him a sword, to which she agrees provided the price stays modest. Inside the armory, Dato picks out a shining blade, and Toru Suzuki marvels at its polished steel as the merchant praises his eye. Closing the deal at half price feels like a steal to Dato, though Ria steps forward requesting to inspect the bargain weapon. Toru Suzuki asks for her verdict, only for Ria to reveal the blade is an unsharpened iron club incapable of slicing paper. Ria smirks at the polished fake, explaining the steep discount, though Dato shrugs it off as a cheap and harmless costume prop. Noticing a massive crowd gathered outside a neighboring storefront, Toru Suzuki asks Dato about the long queue. Dato explains that the fence buys whatever carries value, from stolen surface goods to plundered dungeon artifacts. A terrified youth caught in the grasp of an enforcer catches Dato's attention, identifying the captor as an agent of the Mercenaries Guild. Dato points out the cross swords tattoo etched across the thug's face, warning Toru Suzuki never to provoke the Mercenaries Guild. Ignoring all caution, Ria steps straight up to the brute to buy the child's freedom, brushing off Dato's panicked objections. Ria reassures the trembling captive, explaining to Toru Suzuki that she intends to shelter him in a trusted orphanage. Tears fill the young boy's eyes as he reveals his sister remains trapped inside the Mercenaries Guild. Outrage sweeps the party as Ria demands to buy both children, prompting Dato to offer a heavy coin pouch to settle the matter. Sneering at Dato's pouch, the slaver boasts he can fetch twice as much by selling the boy to an underground brothel. As Toru Suzuki fumes, Dato warns that fighting the Mercenaries Guild will ruin their mission, right as Ria draws the practice sword. A sickening crack echoes as Ria strikes the slaver's skull with the dull blade, ignoring Dato's panic as the brute swears bloody revenge. A shrill whistle summons dozens of syndicate enforcers surrounding Toru Suzuki and Ria as hostile reinforcements flood the street. Dato warns that enemies surround them on all sides, leaving no choice but to fight their way through, just as a girl behind the wall grips a strange sphere. She hurls the sphere into the mob, and it detonates instantly, blanketing the entire street in thick, blinding smoke. Choking on the heavy fumes, Toru Suzuki stumbles blind until a firm hand grips his wrist and pulls him into a sprint. Tears sting his eyes as he is dragged through the haze, only to catch sight of an animal tail swishing behind his savior. Lost in the gray fog, the pursuers frantically search the alley, their leader shouting that the targets could not have slipped far. Gasping for breath through the winding back alleys, Toru Suzuki realizes this tailed stranger just pulled him out of certain death. In front of a heavy iron door, she declares them safe, then knocks and identifies herself as Cat to demand entry. A muffled voice from inside demands the password, and after Cat recites "steal from fat pigs," the heavy door swings open. Cat promises safe shelter inside, reassuring Toru Suzuki that his two companions and the boy were extracted separately to shake off pursuit. Stepping past the threshold to await the rendezvous, Cat instructs a cloaked lookout to report the situation back to headquarters. Piles of wooden crates fill the interior, prompting Toru Suzuki to note its warehouse layout before Cat breathes a sigh of relief. Lowering her hood to reveal feline ears, she invites him to rest, playfully asking if he hates getting rescued by beast folk. Toru Suzuki quickly denies any offense, thanking her for saving his group, before asking what prompted her intervention. Her primary mission was simply to rescue Nick, with Toru Suzuki and his friends merely getting caught up in the crossfire. Connecting the name Nick to the kid tied to the Thieves Guild, Toru Suzuki realizes that Cat belongs to that exact syndicate. She confirms his suspicion with a grin, reminding Toru Suzuki of the matching cloaks he had noticed earlier. Because official guilds cannot brawl openly in public, she thanks him for drawing the crowd's attention and creating the perfect distraction. With an amused grin, Cat adds that his female ally saved them immense trouble by cracking that thug over the skull. When she asks for his name, Toru Suzuki introduces himself, and she replies that everyone in the underworld calls her Cap. Grateful for Nick's rescue, Cat offers a reward, but Toru Suzuki insists that escorting them out of danger was payment enough. Insisting that starting the brawl earned him a personal favor, Cat urges him to speak up if there is anything he desires. Toru Suzuki catches her off guard by asking if he can claim ownership of this empty storage room instead. Noting the identical iron door and layout, Toru Suzuki suspects this hidden chamber might connect directly to his own domain. With an apologetic shrug, Cat explains that handing over guild property exceeds her authority, a limitation Toru Suzuki readily understands. Compromising, Toru Suzuki requests permission to inspect the premises, leaving Cat puzzled over what he hopes to find. Scrambling for an explanation, Toru Suzuki realizes how suspicious he must look, prompting Cat to ask if he is simply a scholar. She notes that his lack of adventurer grit explains why he understands monster speech, and Toru Suzuki readily agrees. Offering to guide him around the room, Cat invites Toru Suzuki to inspect whatever catches his eye. Inside the chamber, he is caught off guard when Cat asks if he truly dislikes beast folk, making Toru Suzuki question her motive. Cat explains widespread prejudice against demi-humans, but Toru Suzuki counters that back home everyone adores them. Curious about her identity, Toru Suzuki asks if Cat is her true name, but she reveals it is merely an alias. Wondering if her alias masks hatred for humans, Toru Suzuki decides to inspect her status screen to uncover the truth. His appraisal fails to pierce her concealed stats. Yet Cat instantly spins around and asks if he just tried peeking at her profile. Admitting he only wanted her real name, Toru Suzuki realizes high-level thieves possess detection skills to sense appraisal attempts. In response, Cat boasts that her superior appraisal will lay bare every single one of Toru Suzuki's secrets. Bursting into laughter, Cat mocks his strange origins and jokes about what an absurd name Toru Suzuki is. Fascinated by unlimited growth, Cat marvels at his hidden unique skills skills, catching Toru Suzuki completely by surprise. Detailing the power, Cat notes that his ability raises a girl's level cap upon close contact, which Toru Suzuki finds absurdly descriptive. Pinned to the floor before he can react, Toru Suzuki groans as Cat demands to test his skill firsthand and leans over him. With her level limit boosted by 1, Cat celebrates, but Toru Suzuki begs her to get off him now that the test is done. When Cat asks for more, Toru Suzuki firmly refuses, prompting her to tease that he secretly despises beastfolk despite his denials. After 3 consecutive boosts, Toru Suzuki demands she get off, but Cat blushes and asks if the room feels uncomfortably hot to him. Revealing her real name as Miriam, she invites Toru Suzuki to call her Miri. Just as he panics over why she is unbuckling her belt, Miri asks if 3 intimate kisses left him craving more, but a terrified Toru Suzuki insists that is completely untrue. Pointing out his undeniable physical arousal, Miri smiles with delight that a beastfolk can excite Toru Suzuki so intensely. Shouts echo outside the door as Ria vows to butcher the entire Thieves Guild. If Toru Suzuki is harmed, though, Dato reminds her they are allies. Hearing the guide announce they have arrived, Toru Suzuki realizes his companions are storming straight toward this room. Terrified of what happens if they walk in, Toru Suzuki begs Miri to scramble off him before everyone bursts through the door. Declaring that her passion cannot be halted, Cat ignores him, forcing Toru Suzuki to shout out the official guild password. Toru Suzuki reminds her that reciting the code requires a response, but Cat giggles that the best part is just beginning. Out of nowhere, Miri yells that they are busy and demands they return later, catching Toru Suzuki and Ria completely off guard. Ria demands to know what is happening and insists on seeing Toru Suzuki as Dato asks for answers and Miri urges him to stay. Furious, Ria orders Dato to blast the door open with magic, leaving Toru Suzuki stunned by her extreme solution. Stepping in before things escalate, Toru Suzuki grabs Miri to move her aside, but she teases him until he shoves her back. Tossing a cloak over Miri, Toru Suzuki hits the door release and welcomes his companions, relieved to find everyone unharmed. Dato notes that their target escaped and Ria asks about the commotion inside, but Toru Suzuki insists all is under control. When Dato questions why Miri claimed they were busy, Toru Suzuki quickly explains she was cleaning and invites the group inside. Once safely behind closed doors, Toru Suzuki confesses how worried he was and shares his relief that they made it back. Ria warns that the Mercenaries Guild poses an ongoing threat, but Dato explains that a Thieves Guild scout is clearing an escape route. Acknowledging the Thieves Guild as an ally, Toru Suzuki asks if routes to the surface or the second floor run through their domain. Both Ria and Dato shake their heads, leading Toru Suzuki to consult Miri, whose flushed face draws concern from the women. Focusing on their escape, Toru Suzuki stresses the need to reach the surface, surprising Miri with his firm determination. Explaining that they do not belong on the first floor, Toru Suzuki hears Miri suggest that joining the Thieves Guild could solve their problem. Miri explains that membership grants temporary immunity from the Mercenaries Guild along with Thieves Guild transit routes, tempting Dato. Ria refuses to join the Thieves Guild, calling them thieving outlaws and vowing to bring the boy and his younger sister to a surface orphanage. Dato reminds Ria of the mortal danger, arguing that since the Thieves Guild rescued them from the Mercenaries Guild, the kids should stay. In response, Ria argues that outlaws only groom children to steal instead of offering them an honest education. Miri counters that abandoned kids seek shelter on their own, and outsiders have no right to dictate how they survive. Meeting the stern glare of Ria, Miri admits that Nick might truly find greater safety on the surface since mercenaries pursue him. Ria confirms the decision, resolving to escort Nick and his sister to the surface as soon as the coast clears. Turning to practical matters, Toru Suzuki asks Miri if she can provide a safe escape route to the surface for the children. When Miri asks them to rest for just a single day, Toru Suzuki apologizes and insists they must move quickly. Asked about exploring the chamber, Toru Suzuki promises they will investigate after completing their surface business. A voice knocks from the hallway, and Miri unlocks the door for a runner who informs Cat that the Mercenaries Guild has withdrawn. Toru Suzuki suspects she is relaying plans about Nick, right before Miri reveals that the guild boss wishes to thank them in person. As Toru Suzuki prepares to decline, Dato clasps a hand over his mouth, warning him against making a reckless rejection. Dato warns that offending the leader of the 800-strong Thieves Guild would make them dangerous enemies. Securing underworld goodwill will ensure safe passage, leading Toru Suzuki to accept the formal invitation. Walking through the streets, Miri admits to Toru Suzuki that despite outnumbering the Merchants Guild, their commerce is failing. Seeking his scholar perspective, Miri asks for advice, prompting Toru Suzuki to suggest that the town requires complete redevelopment. Toru Suzuki describes how modernization in his homeland revamps rundown districts into thriving, well-organized living spaces. Hearing Miri contemplate the concept, Toru Suzuki highlights that the primary crisis on the first floor is total lawlessness. Constructing large multi-use complexes with shops, eateries, and dedicated security checkpoints could could easily filter out criminals. Ria praises the idea of a safe sanctuary for children, and Dato notes it would draw visitors down from the surface. Intrigued, Miri asks for more details, and Toru Suzuki shares the full blueprint of modern commercial development. Proposing a partnership with surface factions, Miri listens as Dato predicts that a powerful coalition could crush the Merchants Guild. Toru Suzuki agrees, adding that offering first-floor trading rights will easily draw influential surface partners. Overjoyed with new hope, Miri thanks Toru Suzuki, who warns of severe hurdles ahead before she pledges full commitment. Noting her influence over both the children and the guild, Toru Suzuki ponders her true rank until Miri announces their destination. Reaching the Thieves Guild headquarters, the party is greeted by a glasses-wearing secretary named Noella. Noella ushers them inside for a personal audience with the guild master, instructing Kat and Nick to wait outside. Entering the private quarters, the group discovers a frail girl resting on a bed, the underground sovereign, Dorothea II. Startled to see a child leading the syndicate, Toru Suzuki extends a polite greeting, matched by warm respect from Dato. The young guildmaster remains silent, and Noella apologizes, explaining that protocol requires the secretary to speak on her behalf. Toru Suzuki deduces that the silence protects the ruler's identity, appreciating the harsh weight placed on a young figurehead. Following a hushed consultation, Noella delivers the Thieves Guild's gratitude for rescuing Nick, despite defying the Mercenaries Guild. Noella formally invites the party to join the Thieves Guild as honored guests, asking for their official decision. Ria outright rejects the offer, ignoring Dato in her plea for tact as she demands custody of Nick and his sister. Remaining calm, Noella clarifies that the Thieves Guild never coerces orphans, urging Ria to ask the children directly, insisting that orphans deserve safety on the surface. Ria watches as Noella turns toward Toru Suzuki for the final verdict. Can you guarantee that Nick and his sister Marie will have a safe, peaceful home to grow up in? Ria gives her word, confident that New Haven will beat the underground. Toru Suzuki requests a moment to confer, and Noella grants it. Stepping over to Ria, Toru Suzuki suggests her trusted orphanage would give both kids the proper care they deserve, and she agrees. Next, Ria asks Dato if they can count on her support. Dato admits she has little choice, and when Toru Suzuki checks on Shizuku, the slime trembles with excitement. With smiles all around, Toru Suzuki seals the promise. Noella nods, adding one condition from the boss: a Thieves Guild member must escort the kids to safety. Noella reassures them that having a guild operative at their side will deter rival factions and smooth out every step of the journey. Agreeing to the terms, Toru Suzuki promises to send word once Nick and Marie arrive safely, earning deep gratitude and an open invitation from Noella. Before long, Noella steps away to summon the escort for Nick and Marie. Toru Suzuki remarks on how tense things were, and Dato agrees, hoping to catch Miri before departing. Toru Suzuki looks around just as Nick and Marie step forward, greeted by Ria's promise that they can rely on her. Miri strides over to announce she is their assigned escort, teasingly asking Toru Suzuki why he looks so sullen, though he insists everything is fine. Bored with subterranean life, Miri admits she wants a breath of fresh air on the surface, bringing a broad smile to Toru Suzuki. Leading the way, Miri reveals a secret Thieves Guild shortcut to the surface. Dato calls it wonderful before Miri asks Toru Suzuki his impression of the boss. Even caught only in silhouette, Toru Suzuki admits the leader is stunningly beautiful, and Miri chuckles in full agreement. When Toru Suzuki blurts out that her figure was enormous, Miri promptly pinches him. Reaching the stairwell leading up, Toru Suzuki feels a surge of excitement. Curious about his quiet mood, Miri asks if he rarely ventures outdoors, and Toru Suzuki sheepishly admits he never really goes outside. Bright light breaks across the top of the stairwell as they reach the surface, where Toru Suzuki beholds this new world. A sprawling city unfolds before him. Ria explains it as Heraclean, commonly called Yomi City due to the nearby Yomi Labyrinth, home to the Adventurers Guild. Ria asks how he likes this realm compared to Toru Suzuki's old room with no computers. Dato chimes in, insisting the city still offers plenty of comforts. Turning to Shizuku, Toru Suzuki asks for her thoughts. Shizuku beams, praising the crystal air, radiant sunshine, and gorgeous scenery as the absolute best. With a bright smile, she promises to show Toru Suzuki around and drag him through every exciting spot in the city.